Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Classic Quest podcast. This is the show where we break down classic hip-hop albums and take a look at why people think they're amazing. We do this track by track. We go into some depth. My name is Holden Stephan Roy.
I am your lady friend, Bonnie.
And today, we will be talking about the classic album, Dead Prez's Let's Get Free. Alright, so we're going to do the intro bit, and you can feel free to skip that by checking the description of the video and seeing the whole timestamp of what everything happens.
But if you just want to listen to us babble away, you could do that too.
That's a good option in my opinion. But we want to let you know off the jump that there's a huge chance that y'all are way more knowledgeable about the Dead Prez than we are. And, you know, we are just some folk who decided one day to start looking into the art of the album in an era where the singles dominate. And we wanted to just kind of learn and grow and like go through this adventure, this quest, if you will, to understand the hip hop culture and appreciate it for what it is. So if you feel that you want to add to the review or criticize or say anything you feel like saying in those comments.
Any great stories you've got for us about, any interactions with these people?
Anything we get a little bit wrong, you want to feel free to correct. We encourage all those interactions.
Your interpretation of the songs?
Yeah, all of that good stuff. Like sometimes it's just cool to hear how somebody bought an album in like 97 or whatever in a specific record store just to like...
Or in this case, February 8th, 2000.
Fair enough. Anyway, so we appreciate it all. And we'd like to read our favorite comment on last week's video. And even though YouTube is broken as we speak and we had to do the old-fashioned way of actually going to a video, we found a comment on... What did we review last week, Bonnie?
Last week we did The Far Side, Bizarre Ride to the Far Side. And
on that album, we got a comment from JWX period. And I really like this one because I'm tooting my own horn here for a second.
Toot, toot.
Wow, I never thought for better or for worse as an ode to hip-hop. The crazy phone call part, which sounds a lot like Violent J, is done by Fat Lip. So I was proud of myself because I was able to apply the knowledge and skill set that I had gained over the course of reviewing albums on this channel to make a deduction into what that song was about. I thought it was really
Sherlock
cool.
Holmes.
In that moment, in one of those rare moments of levity, as they say, in the middle of the reviewing history on this channel with all the blunders along the way. Anyway, so we just love all the comments. It really is cool to hear what you think, or even just to hear that somebody else agrees with my crazy ideas is dope, or he disagrees, which happened a lot more back in the day than lately. But still, before we jump into it today, special thanks to the patrons, Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black Hurricane, and Lindell Williams. On that note, Bonnie, why don't you tell the people scanning this video for audio cues for keywords what album we are reviewing one more time?
We are doing Dead Prez, Let's Get Free.
That's exactly what it is. So, Bonnie, why don't you tell me, because this is the part of the show where we contextualize our familiarity with the artist. It's super important in the sense that if you've been a longtime fan of Dead Prez, you're going to feel a certain way about the album. If you've been listening to this for 20 years, you're going to feel a certain way about the album. Or, just if you're brand new to it, you're going to feel a different way. And all of this should be kept in mind. So I feel like rather than having you guess how we try to front or whatever, we're just going to tell you our experience with this album off the front, going into it. So back to the question, Bunny.
Yeah, so, as far as I know, I know I've heard the name before, but I didn't really ever listen to them, and I wasn't sure what they sounded like at all when I went into this. So that's it.
So I know who Dead Prez was because there's that one banger song that I think a lot of folk know.
Sorry.
The hip-hop track, I've been bumping that for a very, very long time, to a point where it's quite exciting to be able to talk about it on a review at some point later on, a little bit. So that was about it, though. And I like the song Hell Yeah. That song Hell Yeah by Dead Prez is real good. I don't know. At one point, I could spit most of it by heart. I really liked it that much. But I never listened to a whole lot more by them. And then, this has just been one that we were planning to get to, and then the day finally came where we got to it. I knew they were political, and it was going to be, pretty intense shit. And, I don't know. I like the name Dead Prez. It makes me think of dead presidents, makes me think of money, but it could also be, assassinate and, take on a whole other side of it. Yeah. So it's a really powerful name just of the group, I mean. And then you look at the album. Let's Get Free, with that very powerful imagery of a bunch of revolutionaries ready to fucking go, with almost like a violenter shade to it to like incite some shit. Like, this is the group, this is the album that's gonna start the revolution. You know, like Rage Against the Machine lifted it up, and somebody's finally coming in to take it. Or I guess Public Enemy, if you want to go on the pure hip hop side. But like, you know, that energy of it, like you just feel like it's gonna be that kind of a project. At least I felt like that just looking at it, you know?
Yeah.
And Let's Get Free. Just such a powerful idea, you know? Like, almost in this day and age, many people really aren't free, whether or not they want to admit it. And
well, I think that like kind of what they're instilling is that they're going to take their freedom, and like this is like their message, and that they want to encourage others to do the same.
Right. And I just think, though, that, like, it's one of those messages that almost feels like a rally cry, and like, all this time later, we need it more than ever, almost. Like, that's a really cool thing to me. But it's such a cool title. It's such a cool album cover. It's one of my favorites that we come across, just because it's just so powerful, and it makes such a vivid fucking statement.
It's very, like, catchy and very, like, shocking, and it's kind of, like, just, like, the coloring is, you know, like, what is it, Sierra, I think it's called, usually, like when it's kind of like yellowed a little bit. So it looks kind of like, you know, from like the 60s or 70s, you know, I guess kind of with that coloring. Yeah, and it's pretty interesting.
Anyway, let's get into it. There's a whole bunch of songs to talk about, and the first one is a little Wolves intro.
Smell the blood and wants to eat, and it'll come and lick the blade.
All right, Bonnie, what do you think about this little introduction here?
I mean, it's pretty powerful. The speaker, it's Omali Yeshitela. I hope I'm saying that right. And I did some like quick little like research into who he was, and he's like the founder of Africans People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement, which I was like, I was looking into those, and it's obviously like very like pro-African and just kind of like a strong leader, I guess. And so he's speaking about how, you know, and there's also like wolves howling like over this speech, and like piano, and it's kind of like really like the sound is like really cool. So just sort of the story of indigenous people in like the Arctic, and how they hunt for wolves, and they'll place like their knife like upside down, or I guess like with like the handle in the ice so that the blade's sticking up, with like, you know, and it's already bloodied a little bit with like animal flesh or whatever to encourage wolves to go to it, and then the wolves will go and they'll lick it, and then like, you know, obviously maybe like try to like bite it, and it'll end up just like bleeding, but like they'll think that they're eating something, but really they're just like drinking their own blood. And so he compares that kind of situation, I guess, to the situation involving black people and in America, and the crack cocaine like epidemic, and like how they're being blamed for just trying to like live. And he compares that exactly to blaming like the hunter. Like instead of blaming the hunter, they blame like the wolf for just trying to like live and trying to like do what it does naturally. And so it's, I don't know if I'm making that clear, but it just like the issues with like imperialism and like the control over of like white people over black people in America, and like how like there's like that shift between the two of them. And it's a pretty powerful, strong start that there's like, you know, always like this constant like control and like force that they feel from white people. And like the beat is really cool, and how crack cocaine is just sort of like this dangerous thing that exists in black communities, and how people think that they can use it as a way to escape by selling it and making money and trying to have money and have wealth, just like white people do. but then realizing that it's actually like a really terrible thing to get caught up in, and then you'll end up in jail or dead or shot or whatever, and it only makes life worse and more terrible for other Black people in your community. So it's just like a negative all around. It doesn't necessarily help anybody. And that's kind of like, we've heard that time and time again, where like kids like idolize like the drug dealers like in their communities, and because they're rich and they have all these nice things and all that, and like that's sort of like the issue of growing up in like this obviously crack at this time in the 90s and like 2000s, and I'm sure still today, just with, there's other drugs now, and just like how like that's still sort of like prevalent in like these types of situations in these types of neighborhoods. So it's good and it's strong, and like there's obviously like you're kind of getting like that strength, just like the cover, you're getting like that message of like strong Black people standing up and just trying to like fight back kind of. So I thought it was very cool. I gave it a 4.5 on 5.
Yeah. It's kind of like what it is. It's basically using this little story of the wolf on how the wolf gets caught in a trap, because the trap is to play against the wolf's base instinct. It tastes the blood, but because it's so caught up in the bloodlust of like, wow, I'm going to eat, it doesn't even notice the harm it's doing to itself until it's too late, and then it's just done. And in the same way, the way crack was brought into the hood and supplied to people created very much the same kind of effect in the environments. Like, there's enough evidence out there to make it kind of clear that the presence of crack is definitely a deliberate effort. And when you look at what happened with it, it really did wreak havoc on communities, destroying a lot of very smart people who were very capable, and just kind of hurt them all in that situation. So it's kind of like...
And a lot of like innocent bystanders for a lot of things ended up getting killed and hurt just in the midst of things.
And it's all for like the sake of the dealers, let's say, or the people all under the ruse of getting more wealth and materialism. So it's not just money. It's about so much the same possessions that other people have. And
how having things almost feels like having power, but it's not really equal, I don't think.
And then when we really consider the situation at a systematic level, instead of recognizing that perhaps, like I come from poverty in a sense. So while I never grew up quite in American poverty circumstances, I came from Canadian welfare life. So something that happens in, let's say, poorer neighborhoods and environments, like I remember working at this Dunkin' Donuts overnight and watching the little crack community like fucking congregate and shit. And while resourceful, a lot of people in poorer circumstances stop believing in anything beyond like the environment that they're in and shit. So if the environment is fucked up to instill that people don't believe in anything more than what's in front of their faces, or get caught up in certain illusions and lies and whatnot, and it's very detrimental to the long run. And then that happens, but what people who judge it often do, and I've read a few sociological books and shit, kind of looking at the hood from the perspective of academia, and it never really looks at how things came to be. It always just seems to be
how they are now.
Yeah, how the people are and how everyone acts a certain way, and how basically it's the fault of the people in the hood for their circumstances. Or if you like listen to just some of the basic conversations that go around the office place or whatever, if it ever comes up, you'll always hear somebody be like, yeah, well, if Black people didn't have this attitude, or if this, or if that, and you know that's just some shit that got fed to them from the news and other propaganda sources. So
yeah, which we will touch on for sure.
So just in light of how people don't like to blame the fact that there is systematic shit in place that makes it a lot more difficult, like just access to education. Just being able to go to a school that teaches you basic critical thinking is fucking huge. That one little thing could make or break an entire person's like success plan. And as we'll see, good schools isn't necessarily out there. So just the way that people judge this environment in light of the fact that really you should be blaming the hunter for tricking the wolf and you know, playing up on the nature, but instead people are like, the wolf's stupid. So in the same way, people are just like, yeah, black people are stupid, and they might use the more mocking tone because, yo, why do you sell crack? If you don't want to die, don't sell crack. But it's like, I don't know, maybe
it's not necessarily always a choice in, like, you know, certain circumstances.
Well, I mean, it's probably a choice, but it's a lot more complicated a choice when your options are not the same as they are in, like, Montreal, where even if you're from the hood, you can go work downtown and not have to deal with the bullshit, you know? Like, you have options because you can get anywhere, and that's just the way our little island's set up, you know? Anyway, I really thought this was a strong start with a powerful beat, and, like, it was definitely a good introduction to set up something for, like, what you're supposed to be feeling for this album. Like, you know, this is gonna be like, yo, shit's a little bit fucked up these days. It really lives up to the promise of a title, and I don't know, it got me thinking, right? And I guess that's the goal of this kind of album.
Yeah. But
But it's also like this rallying cry in a sense, where it's like, wake up, don't be that wolf, be smarter. And I like it. It's a 4.5 on 5. It's definitely not the last we'll hear of this fine speaker, man. And yeah, the next track is I'm a African.
And I know what's happening. I'm a African. I'm a African.
Wow. Is this not how you start some shit? This
Yep.
is how you start. So you get that proper, like, motivational speaker, kind of hype you up on the pensive shit. The beat just kicks in. I feel like this is that kind of sparse, hard beat that was really popular in, like, the late 90s, 2000s type era, maybe a bit earlier. But it was like when I was a little one, this is what was considered to be good hip hop sounding. Like, so there's like a correlation in my brain between the overall sound of this kind of beat and being like the shit. Like, I don't know if it's nostalgia or if the beat's actually that good. And to me, it just sounds proper, and it's got all these samples playing up on over each other.
Yeah.
And then Stickman just comes in and he's like, the red is for the blood of my arm, the black is for the gun of my palm, and the green is for the trom that grows natural. So I found out trom, that's marijuana, folks. And so he takes like the African flag colors and breaks it down like it's from my blood, for the gum, for the weed, kind of like a representation of his reality in a sense, and just like, I don't know, and like it grows natural, like locks on Africans, and I'm like, it is strong. I don't know. I know some people might be like, white people shouldn't bump shit like this.
it definitely, like on first listen, I definitely had like a David Banner sort of feeling, like listening to like the last album, where it was very like pro-black, you know, but this one is a little bit more like pro-African, which is a little bit different, but still like very like strong, like fighting, like stand up to like the white man.
But I get it. I want to stand up to the white man too. He's a fucking
Absolutely.
asshole.
Yep.
Like, I mean,
I agree.
In 2019, it's like, if you make less than 6 figures, fuck you. Like, straight up. And I'm not trying to correlate and I always feel like sometimes I say this shit and it's dangerous territory. I do not believe that the plights I have to exist in life ever compare. I understand what white privilege is, and I'm not trying to complicate the situation, but I want to be more on the ally and shit. So to me, listening to shit like this is educational and like motivational, because like you see the passion and just the pride they take in themselves, and you're like, fuck, I wish I knew anybody that was that into like their culture like that, you know?
Yep.
And that really strikes me in a powerful way. Plus the flow is ridiculous, the energy is ridiculous, you know, and it's just strong. Like, I like when he's like in between NWA and Public Enemy, PE, and I'm like, that is kind of what this is. Hard as fuck, but super strong and like that front. Yep. And I really dig it, you know. And then it's like raised in the ghetto by the people, fuck the police, you know how we do. And then, you know, M1, who got his name from the picture of Malcolm X holding the M1 machine gun, which I thought was fucking dope, because these guys is like leftist, Marxist, they're inspired by the Chinese Mao dude and his philosophies and shit. So these guys is like...
what is it? Oh, darn it. I forgot the Chinese...
Mao.
No. The book that you read last year.
The Art of War?
Yeah.
Everybody's read The Art of War. That's not even special.
I know. I'm just saying,
The
not
shit's
everybody's
like,
read it.
the shit's like fucking 85 pages.
Yeah.
If you haven't read The Art of War, just cop it and read it. It's an easy win to look cool. It's seriously, it's the shortest of the books that'll make you look cool, in my opinion. And it's a fucking easy read. Like, it's just a bunch of little vignettes. Like, if the enemy is to the left, consider the weather is like this. And I'm just short playing it. It's pretty strategic in it. It's to get you to think about, you know, the environment. And anyway. But yeah, that was pretty cool to me. And he starts it off, my life is like Roots. It's a true story. And I would really like to watch Roots. I believe it's written by Alex Haley, who's the same dude who wrote the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I read that dude, and I gave it to Chris Chrome, and he's busy reading it right now. And that book fucked me up because it like opened my eyes to a lot of things that helped me appreciate the anger and where these guys are coming from. And I think that shit should be a mandatory reading for everybody. Everybody, I'm looking at you.
I'll read it. You don't need to glare at me. I'll happily read it.
Dope. You set it on wax, as they say. Anyway, it's just powerful. It's too gory for the televised fables on cable. I'm a runaway slave watching the North Star, shackles on my forearm, running with a gun in my palm. I'm African, never was African American. Blacker than black, I take it back to my origin. Same skin, hated by the Klansmen. Like, this is some unapologetic shit. Like, bluntly putting out this situation as it is. Like, I am who I am. I recognize my heritage, where I come from. These motherfuckers do not like what we are. I got the big nose and lips, big hips and butts dancing. What? Like, what the fuck you gonna do? This is who we are. Mm-hmm. And then that chorus is just fucking popping. Like, you just want to bang to it. I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna just sing it, but you guys know what it is. It's fucking dope chorus. And then I like how he's like, it's plain to see you can't change me because I'm People's Army for life. So apparently People's Army is their little clique as a rap group. And simultaneously taking in from that super leftist ideology and shit, which is just so weird to get like socialist politics in like hip hop.
Yeah,
which
like,
is
almost like communist a bit too, like the way that they go about it.
The only people I know in my regular life who are at all into this kind of thinking are middle class white boys and a couple of white girls, but mostly middle class white boys. That's the only people I've ever met into this kind of thinking. So it's kind of cool to see it like a whole other take on it, and I can get behind it because they're coming from a perspective where it's a little bit different than, say, some of the bullshit that I might see online coming from the other cliques. Either way, I like how he just shows out that Africa is where he's from in the last verse there. If you're black, you're African. That's just what's up. They point out people like Peter Tosh, who I'm not gonna lie, I haven't Googled yet, but I'm going to, because that's a lot of like what's done in these tracks. It's like meant to give you names of people to look at and to learn about and understand the story about. So even if they don't tell you in the song, you know that you can look into it and it puts the name in your brain. I don't know, man. I like the last verse. This, that tank top, flip flop, naughty dreadlock, fuck a cop, hip hop, make your head bop, bounce to the socialist movement. My environment made me the I am. Uncle Sam came and got me and the rest of my fam. Oh, it's just, this is some good shit, man. I listen to punk music for that kind of energy. I love this kind of anti-establishment shit. This is my dream, is to be one of these motherfuckers, not in like such a direct way at this point in my life, but say I had the ability to pull that off. Why the fuck not? There's a lot of bullshit that needs to be fought.
Yeah.
So I really feel pumped up. I like how he's just not American. He's not Democrat or Republican. It's just powerful, this disassociation from a system. I'm like, I get it, man. I look around at Canada, and this is not a popular opinion, but I'm totally not proud of my country and what it represents these days. A lot of people blindly follow that shit, but if there was a Pledge of Allegiance that was obligated to be saying it, I would not feel so comfortable saying it myself. That's just how I feel about the current state of things. I mean, I'm very grateful to have my ethnicity and all of that bullshit, because being Canadian's pretty lucky. Mm-hmm. But we're so full of shit as a country that it's just as vapid as what they're feeling, you know? Anyway, you don't have to agree with me. I'm not a huge fan of this country. Its leadership and its faux social politics.
You mean currently?
Yeah, though, like
always.
No, but since I've been an adult and paying attention, absolutely. Since 2008, and I've cared, That's like the end of the Liberals. Stephen Harper becomes he was already our prime minister, and then he was there for a decade ruining Canada.
Yep.
And then Trudeau is a special case where he's a special case. We'll leave it at that. I'm not saying he's good or bad,
and he has his cons.
but I would say faux social justice is a good thing to attribute to him.
Wow.
I digress. Faux. I'm going to give this song, though, a 4.5 on 5. It's an absolute fucking banger. And I didn't realize that they were picked up by Lord Jamar. And they were part of his loud movements and shit. So it made me curious to know if, like, Brand Nubian is actually, like, worth delving into. So y'all let me know if you want to see us honkies here break down some Brand Nubian albums. On that note, 4.5 on 5. This track is stellar. I know you haven't really talked yet, so why don't you tell us how you feel about this song?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's very, like, Pan-African, very, like, you know, like, in that sense. And, like, they're very, they definitely have, like, certain views that they're very, like, strong about, which is great. And it makes some, like, references to, like, slavery in this, and they're clearly, like, they mention that they're, like, African, like, they're not African American, like, don't confuse them, and they never really asked to be African, you know, that they were just, you know, fighting for the people, and, you know, their people has dealt, you know, with so much, and how much they've gone through, and they were taken from Africa, and, you know, they were brought here unwillingly, and, you know, they basically say, like, no matter where you are now, you still represent, and, you know, Africa is still a part of you, and is your, you know, is the motherland, and, you know, it's still part of who you are, because, you know, it's even visible on your skin that that's where you're from, and, like, that's, you know, you're from that place, and that's something that kind of holds everybody together. And in this case, it's sort of like a powerful force against the oppressors, who are mostly like the white people. And so that's kind of like their message. And yeah, and like everything about their time since slavery, since, you know, white people have been like basically bothering them and oppressing them and killing them and everything else, like ever since that moment, and like up until where they're at today, has caused them to feel this anger and this passion and this fight to continue fighting and keep trying to change the way things are, and how they continue to be, and how they continue to be like the little man that is fighting up against this big, powerful, evil force. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty strong, and I mean, it's pretty much how, like, you know, it's their first song on the album, essentially, and this is, I believe, their first album. So this is a pretty strong message to come off with right at the very start, and definitely sets the tone for who they are, what they believe in, and what they're passionate about. So I gave this a 4.75. You know, pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty dope, and it flows into another serious topic, which might be a good segue for like every fucking track, except for a couple. Anyway, they school is just as bullshit as our schools. This music video had some shocking imagery. They're in nooses and stuff as they're singing in the school, and I like it. It's very bold. It's got vibes of rebelliousness. It just shows how little it cares. Literally, buddies getting arrested in school or taken away by the, like, fucking security forces of the school. Like, it just, I didn't have that shit. There were no gun detectors. People weren't searching our shit, sort of. There was a year where there was a lot of dope dealing at my school, and the cops were there a lot, and they did arrest a couple of people, but it wasn't like they were in the school. They would just hang out outside where the smokers would hang out, just to make sure nothing fishy happened.
I mean, I think we had a lot of pot, but I think we also had like a fair amount of actual like cocaine dealers, and like, I mean, several people I knew, like, they were like, yeah, we did cocaine in class, like, you know, and like through notebooks and stuff, and I was like, okay.
But like, we're talking just like at the school, having the police presence there, like,
yeah, I mean,
just having people ruffle through your shit because you're black and like they're looking for some whatever. But even just because this song's about school and its ineffectualness, right? And this is something that I personally feel super passionate about, because school in general is pretty fucking useless in a lot of ways. Not because it's inherently useless, but it's highly inefficient. I mean, all you can maybe get out of school these days is some critical thinking and a basic foundation of math and science, which is, I mean, not completely useless, but like for real, if we restructured that shit, you could probably condense what you get out of 5 years into like 2. For us, it's 5 years. I know for America, it's 4 years. But like, it's just, and then you start watching shit like revisionist history. And this is something I feel very passionate about too, as I've learned a lot about Black history and just how things are different than maybe what's reported. And like, you maybe at first don't believe it, or you're a little bit skeptical and shit. And then I think it was 2018. That's very recent because it's only 2019 to this year, right? Quebec released a history book where if you read the motherfucker, women basically didn't do anything. Women weren't there. They weren't there. They weren't represented at all. The native people that Quebec slaughtered and stole land from were like friendly neighbors who gave up the land. And it's like, yo, this shit's like literal propaganda for like white French guys.
Yeah, like
It's
I
just-
in my university years, which I went to university later on, you know, maybe not like directly like after, you know, college. So I went to it a little bit older, and there was still so much. I took a class about Canadian history, and like there was so much that was shocking that I had no idea about. So many
Like
like
how
bad things that we did.
Canadian
and
government tried to systematically kill Huskies to keep the savage Native Americans up north. The numerous amount of RCMP sex slave investigations. There's like a lot of bad stuff.
yeah, I mean, yes, those are a bit more
The Husky-
modern, I would say.
I would say the Husky thing is something that should be in our history books. It's like an honest, shameful part of history to learn from. But,
And like residential schools, like that kind of stuff that we did, and you know, like that's, you know, it was just
or
like all of like the terrible stuff.
like,
Like that
there's
should
n-
also be included, you know, with our victories.
and like there's nothing really about racism in our country that we learned about. We didn't really, I don't know about you, at least in my school, we
Like
didn't
I feel
touch
like
on
I
it.
learned about those kinds of things in moral class. I learned about
But it was always like the Americans. It wasn't like, yeah, Canada did it too kind of shit.
Like I learned about, you know, Martin Luther King, and I learned about I don't know who else. I'm trying to think who else I learned about. But like, you know, obviously people who did things, like it was like a separate class. It wasn't with the history, which I found kind of weird now that I'm thinking about it.
And it's just because our history is always written in a way to make us all look good, and that's why I started this talking about Quebec. I know it's not really at the song yet, but the first thing you hear in the song is, man, that school shit is a joke. The same people who control the school system, the prison system, the whole social system ever since slavery, you know what I'm saying? And when I think about the social politics in Quebec, where French is a dominant force, and I mean, being English in Quebec isn't exactly the smartest thing if you want to ever come to this province. You have to know French. It's just facts. And you look at
Montreal's a little bit different.
it's less and less so over time. The assimilation of English into French is happening, whether we like it or not. There's like gerrymandering tactics at a top level. There's all sorts of bullshit to basically suppress English. Like there's studies that get done on whether storekeepers say hi, bonjour,
But
or
they're
bonjour,
saying,
hi.
yeah, it's happening way more now because they were trying to stop it. Anyways, it's just so stupid.
So that kind of shit happens. But when you see the Quebec government rewriting history to make pro-French nationalism the highlight of the book, right? And then you think about all the kids being indoctrinated into this, it's obviously a long-term play to shift the global culture of the youth away from speaking English. And that's the type of shit that black people have had to endure for that. Like that's
Like probably much worse.
and all the time and all that shit. But like, I suppose watching it take place in my homeland, just like that, and because it's language, nobody really talks about it really, but it really stems into racism because this ignorance that comes from it, it turns into white French, blah blah blah.
I've applied to lots of places. I've gone to like lots of different interviews in my lifetime, and
Well, it could basically just
anything that's like a government type job, whether it's working at the alcohol store, whether it's working at the casinos, anything that's, you know, run by the government, they'll exclusively pretty much hire French people.
But it's more than that. It's like at the name level, I'm okay because my last name's Roy, which looks like Roy, so I can kind of sneak in. Bonnie Hannah's sort of okay,
Yeah.
but she's a little
No,
more...
no, it's not okay.
But she's more okay than Jamal.
clearly am
I promise
English.
you, like Abdul or Jamal
Yes.
or Shakila or any of these names,
Lee
these
or
people,
things like that.
these people are not getting called back in Quebec because there's just going to be an assumption that you probably don't speak French. So weirdly enough, it's not entirely racism, but it turns out to be the same fucking thing. And then there's just all the racism if you look around Quebec lately. We've got like literal Nazis and shit going on, and it's a fucking weird time to be alive. Anyway, so when you see that shit happening and then you hear a song like this that came out in 2000, it's just to me like pretty like, wow, you know, he's got a fucking point.
Goes to show you, things don't change, folks.
Like Stickman starts us off with, in the first verse, I went to school with some redneck crackers. I love that they say crackers. It's one of my favorite words in terms of, because like I feel like white people need to be put down a little bit sometimes. I don't know. I know it's fucking twisted, but like it kind of makes me happy to see them bold enough to drop that shit, not unapologetically, like fighting back like that. That energy's cool to me. Right around the third base, dropped a Cactus album, but I was reading Malcolm. I changed my name in 89, cleansing part of my brains like a baby 9. I took a history class serious, front row every day, week, third period. Fucking with the teacher's head, calling them racist. I tried to show them crackers some night, they couldn't face it. And you just get the sense that, like, this is a guy who's learned a lot of real shit, goes in, hears some bullshit, and starts talking to the teacher like, yo, what's good? This is the real truth. What you gonna say about that? And then the teacher's obviously gonna spit propaganda or whatever, and ends up with the situation where, you know, he doesn't really learn anything. So he gets his diploma and he looks around the environment where there's like pregnant people and drug dealing and police being harassed and shit. And then what I learned, and I did Google this, was claiming Africans are only 3/5 a human being. You know, it seems like Europeans are glorified, and that had to do with early voting and ways to figure out the population densities of different regions for like the way ridings work today for the sake of how many seats or whatever an area will get. So when they calculated the population totals, slaves or Africans were only worth 3/5 a person when they ran that number, which is just such a fucking weird thing. This like was such a weird metric, all things considered. That's like their value, and to teach that in a school like just like that, and I don't know, like I can understand the more I learn things like this how fucked up it must be to be sitting there and having everybody normalize it like this is what happened, but like the impact of being like, wow, so like my grandparents or great grandparents are like less than human, literally. That's less than a person. I don't know. That's some shit. So I guess it's cool that Dead Prez is educating me like that. And then the chorus is alright. It's totally, I mean, it's very pumped up for like of the times, I feel, of what it's supposed to, or it's an interlude, I guess, with the jobs. Yeah, it's an interlude. I don't think it's a chorus. Sometimes they do choruses, sometimes they do interludes. In this case, he's kind of pointing out how like work is fucking pointless, and all of this, like, the whole point of school is to be a good factory worker, which is the truth, right? So in a sense, it's to go make a bunch of shit for the white man. And really, following the fundamental school isn't gonna get you to being the boss. It's just gonna turn you into an efficient grunt, and that's still true today. It's really weird how much of our school is designed to turn people into factory workers. And it's true if you really
just obedient people,
look into
obedient citizens, I think.
And I say that based on the history of education and what it was meant for. Like, education really needs a reform to change the skill sets that are taught in a world that's going to be soon project managers and coders. It's not the same thing as like factory workers when robots and shit are going to take over a lot of that manual labor. I mean, not to say that trades are going to go away, because specialized labor like that isn't, but like mass labor can be easily replaced. And just understanding these trends, school in general is fucking pointless. So I really appreciated hearing this because it was pumped up. And the second verse where it's like, school is like a 12-step brainwash camp. They make you think if you drop out, you ain't got a chance to advance in life. They try to make you pull your pants up. Students fight the teachers, get took away in handcuffs. And it just kind of flows up and how it's kind of pointless, but at the end of the day, just because you don't finish school, which he compares to a prison sentence with like the principal being the warden and saying how most people don't even finish that 4-year sentence, right? But that doesn't mean that these people don't have the aptitude and the skill set or the intelligence or the ambition to become something greater, like a dentist or a doctor, just because they couldn't get through that particular environment of school. It's like if school was just made more relevant, if it was like taught how to deal with more localized environments, which is kind of what I was touching on before. I think that's what the whole outro bit is. Make school relevant to us. Which it should be. School should be relevant to the people who are going to school and what skills they'll need in the future. It doesn't matter your economic status, you know?
It makes me question something, and I'm hesitant to even say it. But like just the idea of having, you know, like how there are like Catholic schools or there's schools, you know, that are more like I don't know. I'm like there's schools for like different types of people who believe in different types of thing. Like is there like a pan-African type of a school? Is there like not to say like in like a black school and a white school, like, you know, how it was in like the 60s, but like is there like a willingly, like is there like a black school like that is run that, like, you know, where they teach black history? Like I know in up in the north,
the Nation of Islam does that.
Are there schools like for
they
like
have, like,
kids to actually go to? And like I know in like the northern
Well, I think
Quebec,
there's ways that you could do chartered schools in the States and essentially create that. It wouldn't be
like
that
there's Christian schools, but I don't know if there's like things for like
Well,
I don't know, like
you
or
can
maybe
let
it would
us
have to be
know
homeschooled,
if how
I
that
guess.
works in your neighborhood, if that exists. But I still think that it's more than just the cultural side of it. Like school doesn't make sense unless you're like a middle class person. Like I dropped out of university. I really did. It was just a fucking waste of my life at that point. And I ended up taking a really obtuse backwards route. But when I compare my vision, not maybe all my skill sets, but my vision and my analytical thinking compared to the folk who went to the university system, like you see this almost indoctrinated, like docile nature to a university student graduate that isn't in the people who dropped out and made it. Like there's a difference. Because you're forced, like, because like you have, like, if you're gonna make it as a dropout, you have to learn, and if you're learning outside of school, you're learning a more honest version of shit. I find through books, through self-like growing. You're not going through that filter of the system, and so I just find it all really interesting. And so I agree with this guy how, like, you know, when M1 does his little outro, I think it's M1. It's whoever has the tooth, the missing tooth, I believe, who does the outro. And it's just so great how it's like, yo, make school relevant. It's not that we're against education. It's we're against shit that's a complete waste of time. So more to the point of the cultural side of it all. The cultural side is important to empower you as a person, to believe that you have self-value and worth, to know your history. Because as a Jewish person, knowing Jewish history, it does something to my psyche. I don't know how to describe it. It might be even silly, but something about being Jewish matters. Something about being Scottish, you know, like you can connect to it. It matters. And there's that history that's so documented. But when you look at like the other parts of education, like how do you pay rent when the jobs are this much money? And, you know, when you start teaching survival skills and things like that are really more important for your day-to-day. Like, I'm telling you, coding is important. A basic understanding of HTML. Like, you need to be able to look at HTML code and understand at a top level what's happening. You know, that type of shit. You don't have to code. You just need to kind of get it. You know what I mean? That shit should be taught in schools.
Well, I have seen like recently, like very recently, like within like the last 6 months or so, that they are offering in certain schools now adulting courses where they teach you like how to do your taxes, like how to like buy a house, how to like you know.
But even to that end,
those sorts of things.
I guarantee you that shit is targeted at like middle class white millennials who just go to Starbucks too much, and their biggest problem is that like they don't know how to cook because they just order out food. I'm saying that for this to be effective, it would be like in this neighborhood, the specialization would be for people in that neighborhood to get them to the places they need to be, and not try to standardize education, because that's a stupid ass fucking thing to do when you teach propaganda. Anyway, I think this song has a great energy. The beat's proper. The outro I like it. I like how even the start of the outro is like, fuck you if you have a problem with us putting this outro on here. We are using this album to speak our mind. This is what we got to say. And I love that energy, but it does kind of hurt the song a teensy bit. So I gave it a 4.4 on 5 instead of the 4.5 it otherwise deserves.
Yeah. I mean, this song has a lot in it. There's like a lot going on, but one overall very strong message. So they're kind of talking about it's the same people that are in power as back in the slavery times, and so it's interesting to imagine that that those people are still in power and there's still that struggle, and like so. It's just kind of like an interesting thought, like something to think about, that obviously there definitely needs to be like a whole radical change, and slowly there are more different types of faces showing up in the powerful places, but overall it's still very, very white,
and male,
yeah. And like these schools are designed, kind of what we talked about already is for white people, essentially, for their white history, and they are teaching a variance of things. You're obviously reading like Anne Frank and Uncle Tom's Cabin, and so there are things that you do read.
You read Uncle Tom's Cabin?
Yeah,
I heard about that.
I mean, I think I may have read it on my own.
I think I googled what it was at some point.
It's a very good book. I mean, I would definitely I don't think I necessarily read it for school, but I definitely read it at some point. Willingly. Anyway, so it's just interesting that school is essentially designed by white people for white people, and so that's kind of the issue, is that they're sort of a little bit colorblind, we'll say that, to a lot of other things that should be featured, and that other cultures feel as very important to their history as Americans, period. And so it just that just is kind of left out. And I think that's a lot of the time for minorities, they feel like their history in a certain country and like the influence that they've had, and the hard times or the good times that they've gone through in that country isn't reflected anywhere in their schools. And so I think that's an interesting thing to think about, and that's obviously what this whole song is about, basically. And I'm sure, again, minorities probably all feel very similar to this, that they are only understanding and learning one propaganda, one set of history. I don't think that's a set of history, but anyways.
I like that. I like that. Propaganda is just a set of history, and different propaganda preaches different sets of history. It's not really true history.
Yeah. So... yeah, I mean, it's not like they also mentioned that it's not teaching them how to deal with their everyday issues and how to, get through their lives. They're only understanding what's being taught to them that they don't relate to, and the things that they're, aren't necessarily going to be relevant for them. And they just have no control, out of, over the school system. And he says that he loves education. He and I think that that's something that's very clear in this album, and that he wants to educate people through this album. But the education that he's getting isn't helping them, so he's kind of like, well, fuck education if this is what we're gonna get. And I think that he definitely wants to kind of make his own school system, or he thinks that maybe he is encouraging people to, black people to have, to have homeschool or something, because that way they can be taught, yes, okay, the main curriculum, the basic education that, a lot of people get, but they can also be taught their own culture in their home. And I think that maybe could be different. Anyways, it's a strong, powerful message. I gave it a 4.5. There's a lot to pull out of these songs.
I realized this might be one of our longer podcasts in the history of it all.
Yeah.
With 16 or 15 more to go still. And the truth is, the next song, well, what genre of music is this described as? What is the culture we are speaking of?
I believe it may be hip hop.
Fake, records. Do.
It's bigger than hip hop.
this is another music video that has a pretty good start. So it has this like woman's ass walking, and it zooms in on the ass, and then it goes into this like cartoon, and it goes, good, now that I have your attention. As you got the fake records, and then it's like 1 2 1 2, and it's hyping you up, and then tell me this isn't one of the greatest hip hop hooks of all time. It's bigger than hip hop. It's just so good. It chants it out. It's so powerful. If Hip Hop Karaoke in Montreal comes back again, this is absolutely on the table as a song to fucking do. You know, DP's got that crazy it's too fucking good. I don't know how. That beat is just like grimy, right? Like it's fucking fight music grimy. It's just like and it's abrasive, and it's ready to fucking go.
Yep.
And then, man, M1 starts us off with a powerful statement. One thing about music, when it hits, you feel no pain. And that's the truth, man. Music's such a powerful and beautiful essence that it just does so much, and it takes away. Like, even that angry music, I like very angry music. It makes me very happy, even though it doesn't make Bonnie very happy. And to some people, it's like, whatever. But I'll be honest, I never really looked up the words and thought about every line of this song before. So I didn't realize he was saying, white folks say it controls your brain. I know better than that. That's game, and we ready for that. So it's almost like white people's trying to vilify the truth in music, this more militant side of music, this more knowledge-driven shit, because they say it's gonna control you and brainwash you. And then you think about it. I mean, there have been a lot of albums where we've talked about, especially Christian groups protesting music, like Marilyn Manson's and things like that, right? So evidently, it's not even just limited to hip hop. This level of government and white folk coming in and being like, "Yo, this is bad for you, music." Even to this day, I know people who think that gangsta rap is this detrimental scourge on society as they proceed to load up the action movie and watch a motherfucking with a shotty blast a bunch of fuckers. Throwing it out there. But it's just right off the jump, you know that this song is going to be talking about music, you know? And that first verse is possibly one of the most inspirational verses to my entire life on how I perceive music, how anything I've ever written and stuff, because it's just about being real. Like, it almost takes the concept of be real with it and really just breaks it down, you know? It don't, when it comes to music, it don't really reflect on how many records get sold on sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you know, whether your project's put on hold. In the real world, it's just people with ideas. And they're just like me and you when the smoking camera disappear again, the real world. And you get that sense where if you especially look at modern day pop music where they rent the cars and they do... And I mean, at this point, it's almost bogus. Or did you guys hear about Bow Wow? Where he took the picture of himself in the rent a fucking private jet picture and then was caught like on fucking
he was caught on like Coach like airlines,
and everyone just like, you know, like it's so fake, this fucking image that people put up. And again, you know, and then whatever. So I like when he goes, check 1 2, my word of advice if is to you is just relax, just do what you got to do. If that don't work, then kick the facts. If you a fighter, rider, biter, flame igniter, crowd exciter, or you want to just get high, then just say it. But then if you a liar, pants on fire, wolf cry, agent with a why, I'm gonna know it when I play it. And I think that, like, after reviewing albums now for a couple of years, you can really tell the difference between a dude who has sold crack and is now making music and the guy who is making music and pretending to sell crack. Like, there's just a sound difference to, like, the tone of how they do it. Like, there's nobody happy about it that actually did it. Like, people aren't happy and proud of it, you know? Like, when even a guy like Future isn't happy about it. It's just numb the way he spits it, just to give you a context of what I mean. Like, so when you see certain people, it's like, come on, bro. I don't know, especially, I don't want to talk shit. I'm just pointing out that you can tell when shit is, or especially when it comes to being rich. Sometimes the shit people say to prove how rich they are is just dumb. Or when they dry snitch. Or they just fucking snitch just to, like, be cool. Literally, snitching got cool at a certain point. Anyway, who shot Biggie Smalls? If we don't get them, they gonna get us all. I'm down for running up on them crackers in the city hall. Oh, it's just fucking powerful, man. I'm with you. That's all I'm trying to say. I mean, fucking, you know, like... it's just powerful. Like, it's some real shit. Like, why don't certain things, or if you look at the entire current wave of police brutality, which I guess we can say for police state, but like, it's some real shit. Or why do the people who kill rappers like that never get caught? Or why do all these questions happen? And, you know, maybe some kind of militant intervention needs to happen. Now, I don't really want to advocate for that type of shit. It's not what I'm going for if anyone from the government authorities is watching this shit. I'm saying that passion for change, to call people on their shit, to be vocal, like to peacefully protest with picket signs and shit. That's what I would call for.
Transparency. I can't even say it right. Transparency. Like,
And
that's
then,
what we want from, like, the people in charge.
And then he, like, flips it to, like, just the kind of way, like, rappers act. Like, MCs get a little bit of love and think they're hot, talking about how much money they got. All y'all records sound the same. I'm sick of that fake thug R&B rap scenario all day on the radio. Same scenes in the video. Monotonous material. Y'all hear me, though? And then it's like points at how the record labels will fuck you over and just kind of kick you over, and then questioning your integrity. But the idea is this, like, image that people do, and currently it's this trap banger kind of feel going on. If you're just going to play to that image, I mean, you sound like everyone else. You look like everyone else. All the videos look the same. All the things sound the same. And I don't go out of my way to look for that music, but I'm certain if we wanted to, there's a lot of people that put out albums every week that, like, I choose not to review because I'm like, I don't have anything positive to say about what they're doing. I mean, the entire genre just kind of copy-paste to me. It's just vapid. And I don't feel comfortable talking about vapid lyrics because I always make it sound stupid. So hearing this, the opposite of vapid, is just super pleasurable to me. And then you got that whole outro bait. It's just hype. Who doesn't like it? Then you got the music video where everybody looks like they're going to knock you out in a mosh pit. It's just... This song is a beautiful 5. It is a very great song. It is one of my... Like, this might be in, like I say this a lot, but this is definitely in my top 20, like, hip-hop songs of all time. I don't know about all songs of all time, but it's definitely in, like, my top 100 of all time.
Okay.
It's really, really great. Everybody should listen to it. If you haven't listened to it, pause our review, go listen to it, mosh out, come back feeling pumped, and then come back with us.
Yeah. Especially if you're a fan of hip hop, you should listen to this song called Hip Hop. And, like, for me, like I said, I had never really listened to, like, Dead Prez before, but I've heard this song as soon as it came on, and I heard, like, the hip hop thing. I knew I've heard this before, and probably with you, probably within the last 5 years, I've heard this.
It's a good song.
So there you go. Thank you. Somehow or another, I feel like it played at, like, hip hop karaoke or, like, some event that we went to or something.
It's a good song. It did, actually. I remember that.
Yeah. So I mean, this is just sort of like it's bigger than hip hop. Like, it's just sort of like, it's more than just the music. It's like the lifestyle. It's everything. And, they bring up some issues with, like, the record industry and, just trying to, like, I don't know, there's just kind of a few different messages kind of going on in here. But they're just trying to, like, bring, like, awareness and also bring, encouragement to black people to stand together and be strong
and to spit real shit.
Yeah, and be, like, a stronger, powerful people, and to really just get out there and speak your truth and, like, get. I don't know. It is something that, like, really pumps you up when you hear this. There's so much energy behind it, and, like, I just feel like this is, like, one of those great songs in hip hop that, like, real hip hop fans just get, and, like, this is just, like, part of, like, who they are, and I think that's exactly what this message is supposed to be. So I also gave this a 5 on 5.
It is a great song.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to express it. Meanwhile, maybe what we just said there, oh mon Dieu, on doit parler en français, because in Quebec, that is what you gotta do, speak French for the police state.
L'État police!
Just spreading the seed. To have a black male live a third of his life in a jail cell.
All right, Bonnie, how do you feel about this one?
The state is very, they're just kind of talking about the organization of the state and who's at the top, and how police are just such an issue all the time, and how there's such a different policing and kind of rules for policing between the haves and the have-nots, like how things are done, and obviously, like, you know, we've seen this time and time and time again, you know, in the news, where there's a situation that happens to a white person and a similar situation happens to like a black person, and the outcome is very different. So I think that that's something that's still going on, absolutely. And then also he's kind of talks a little bit more like, or there's a little bit more like communist sort of socialist thoughts, where, you know, like people need to like police themselves, and just sort of like how things start from sort of like grassroots kind of, where things start small by just for like the people, and then, you know, everything else kind of gets escalated. And he wants people to kind of like rise up and make their own rules for things, and make their own police, and do things, you know, for their own people. And it's interesting, and I think that they're talking just about like the struggle and how it continues and how it doesn't change unless things are made to change. And so if nobody is like, this album is really just trying an encouragement, a push, trying to get people to come together and fight and stand up against what's going on. And I think that that's, you know, it's a very strong message overall. And they're going to have to say it, and they kind of expect other people are going to have to say it over and over and over again. And, you know, just to get things done, to make things happen, it's going to be a constant fight. And then at the end, they kind of mentioned, they talk about, there's like a little clip or something, that when welfare gets cut, that it's certain that it's going to drive people to commit more crimes, because people are going to be trying to survive with the little that they have, and they're going to try, you know, to pay their rent and keep the lights on and put food on the table and things like that. Like, they're going to turn to alternatives that will make money, because that's maybe their only way out, and they don't have a good education, and white people won't hire them, and they have a criminal record, and all the other things that are stacked against them. So it's I don't know, it's very there's a lot going on in this, and there's obviously like a lot of anger and, you know, a lot of change that they want to happen, and they're very like idealistic about like what they want, and they have this plan in their mind, and they feel very, very passionate about the struggle and how they are really expressing how they need change, and it was very good. I give this a 4.75.
It was a very strong song. I'm not gonna lie though, I admire that the beat flips up a little bit in this one. It's less static than the other ones, like the second verse is a different tone. But the beat did not resonate as well with me from an enjoyability point of view, just like as a song.
Okay.
As rappers, Stickman and M1 are like consistent as fuck. As in, these guys write essays, and I really like it. I really, really do. But it's hard to like really go in depth about the dopeness of their rapping, in a sense, because it's more what they're rapping about that matters.
Yeah.
In a big way. Like, I throw a Molotov cocktail at the precinct, you know how we think, organize the hood under I Ching banners, red, black, and green instead of gang bandanas. It's great. It's brilliantly written, but it's what he's saying that matters. We fighting back, you know. We're gonna go violently coming in, you know, throwing a Molotov cocktail. It's a vibrant move, you know. You know, we got these banners that we coming over. We are uniting as Africans instead of dividing each other through gangs, you know. And then he says some remarkable shit. FBI spying on us through radio antennas and them hidden cameras in the street, like watching society with no respect for the people's right to privacy. That was so true, and the fact that they were spitting that shit in 2000, and then in 2008 everybody was like, oh fuck, they were spying on us, it was confirmed. Like, damn, Dead Prez, spitting truth long before it was cool. I believe him when he says he'll take a slug for the cause like Huey P. And I know a lot of fake folk that are trying to copy Master P personally. He wants to be free to live and be able to have what he needs to live. Bring the power back to the street where the people live. Oh my gosh, it's just powerful, you know? Understanding that, like, from that introduction defining the state, right? To showing how the police are only relevant not so much because we need to police ourselves, but because there's a wealth disparity. If certain people were not starving and others were not rich, then we wouldn't have a need for the police if everybody was provided for. I don't agree, but you wouldn't need for the police in the exact same way that you do, because there'd be a lot less crime. And that's reinforced by the outro bit. Now, there's two outro bits. There's one according to Genius, which has and that's the speaker O'Malley Yeshitilla, however we say that. And it has him kind of pointing out about like how everywhere in the world that's white is rich and everywhere that's colored is not. And that seems to not be on the version I heard, where instead you have on the outro Fred Hampton going, "I'm a revolutionary," and you're going to have to keep on saying that. You're going to have to say that I'm the proletariat, I'm the people, I'm the pig, which is cool. And then somebody else calling out Giuliani, the mayor of New York, and pointing out that, you know, damn well when you cut the welfare of a person going through crime. And it's pointing out that this is kind of the situation. So it's like they take money away from the resources. They take money out of the hood, criminalize the people, couple in the fact that, you know, slavery is legal if you're in prison. It's fucked up shit is what I'm trying to say. The second verse, I wanted to ask what the CeeLo for push-ups now meant. Was that just commenting how, like, as a little joke, CeeLo needs to do some push-ups? I really wasn't sure if that line had some like relevance to it, but I like how he's like, I'm holding M1s, rolling up my sleeves and shit, just referencing that iconic Malcolm X picture. It's just powerful. It's just like a battle cry. It's just getting people ready for this like situation. That's what this music is. It's I think part of my feelings of this song is slightly impacted by the song we just heard before it, which is one of my favorites of all time. But I gave this song a 4.35. I love the concept. I love the passion. I love everything about what it's being said. And I kind of see where, like, I agree with their political messaging here. On the other hand, I don't enjoy it quite as much as the song, because the chorus, while it is a really good message, like the average black male live a third of his life in a jail cell because the world is controlled by the white male, and the people never get justice, and the women don't get respected, and the problems don't never get solved, and the jobs never pay enough, so the rent always late. You know what? I really can relate kind of shit. It's great messaging, but the way they do this hook, it's just a weird sounding hook as a hook.
I thought it was kind of like an interesting, like a little bit different from what we've heard elsewhere.
And it is, and I'm not even saying it's bad. I'm saying this the type of shit where, like, if I'm live in the show, it's like it's good questioning and shit. But listening to it, I was like, it's more revolutionary cry than it is song, which I like. I don't know why I'm trying to defend it so much. This is just how I feel about the song. I digress. I enjoyed listening to it. I thought it was still wonderful. So why don't we move on to track 6, Behind Enemy Lines.
Okay.
Most of the youths never escape the jail fate. Super maximum cans will advance.
This is another one where, like, the beat kind of flips up a bit as the verses come in, and I thought that was cool because it keeps it alive, because you know, it's just a little fresher as you're listening to it. But why don't you walk us through this one?
So at the very beginning, it sounds like they're all in jail. There's like a warden, and then, like, that's just kind of what it is, I guess. So they're going to jail for fighting for their rights, for fighting for the people, standing up for their people, and how, like, they're talking about someone got framed, and how they just, like, end up getting locked up in jail, and just, like, this is just, like, a normal sort of situation for, like, a black person that they just kind of get screwed over. Stories just get made up about them, you know, and that's true. Like, I can think of many times where I've heard a story where, a black person got you know, arrested or shot for being, like, somebody that looked like maybe it could have been the person that they were looking for, but without any proof. And it's just, you know, like, where they just kill them off or whatever, and or just blame them for the murder or whatever crime that happened and it wasn't them. And I don't know, it's just like there's just always, like, this sort of situation that just keeps happening over and over again. And this one is, like, very, like, abrupt, like how it kind of changes, like, or verses essentially. So there's, like, kind of like a phone call in the middle. Like, I had to even check and see if it was the same song. Like, it definitely seems like something completely different sound. And then, like, there's sort of like a phone call, kind of like a romantic kind of a phone call. And then, like, the next story is about a guy who's in, the guy who's in jail for murder. But that's just sort of like everything about life in the ghetto led him to end up doing that. And so like this sort of situation is built to end up to bring people back into captivity, you know, essentially slavery, and like it's just like this whole situation, and where just people just go round and round and round, and then that's their entire lives, where they just end up under the control of white people, and they're just kind of kept to the side. They're not like, I don't know. It's just like a whole thing. Even like when you think about like how the design of like a ghetto neighborhood, how it was designed and how it's separate a little bit from like the main area or the main part of the city, or it's, I don't know. It's just like just crazy to think about. Anyways. And how you just get locked up for life. And then there's another phone call that happens in Spanish, and life is just, it's a similar situation because they're also kind of struggling.
It's not just black people that are being persecuted.
Yeah.
It's a way to be like inclusive and saying it's other colored people are dealing with the situation too.
Yeah. And so like life in the hood is just like jail. And then you go to jail and you end up living, like, again, the same thing. Like, you end up living the life that was created for you by white people. And it's pretty fucked up when you think about it. Like, how, you know, a lot of the time black people feel like there is no escape. And I can absolutely see why. Like, there's just, like, this horrible shit that just keeps happening and nothing changes because white people are still crackers, essentially. You know, they are the ones with the whip and controlling everybody, and it's very, very, very hard to change and escape. And I think that's, you know, I mean, that's probably why, like, there was, like, you know, Obama was like such like a like at the, you know, for black people, because they thought this is, you know, and they saw and they felt that this was like, this is their chance for like a change. And then, you know, obviously now that didn't really happen, I guess. Well, there was change, yes, that was made, but anyways, now there's Trump. But it's a very strong message again with this one. I gave this another 4.75.
I really like this song. To me, I don't know about 4.75. I don't like think a lot of the beats are like 4.75 good.
Yeah.
I think the messages and the passion and the deliveries like 6 on 5 good. Like, it's all so good, but the beats.
This one was a little bit slower. It was a little.
So, and here's the thing. Like, I love this album. Like, across the board. It's everything I want to listen to when I'm in the mood for it. And for me to hit that higher end of 5s, I gotta love it every time I hear it. And there are certain sounds that we all have preferences that we love more. Now, if we want to talk about revolutionary lyrics and spitting some shit that educates me and teaches me and riles me up, and like, I would listen to this album anytime I wanted to feel pumped up about anything. And it's as good as a punk album for me in that purpose. So I don't want to take away from it. And I gave this song a 4.5 on 5. So we're not even talking about like bad grades. I'm just saying it wasn't
0.25% difference.
Like, we're talking about 90% of awesome and fucking perfection. Okay, so if you're watching Dead Prez, I feel you. I really like it. The first verse talks about Khadija, I don't know how to say it, which is Fred Hampton Jr.'s daughter. So apparently Fred Hampton was killed back in like the 60s because he was trying to teach folk how to be united and how to unite the black community. And those types of people were like killed and assassinated in certain ways by government authorities and agents. I think he was shot during a robbery. And so it's interesting. Like, I didn't know any of this. And then he put it in this song, so I started reading and learning. I'm pointing out how Fred Hampton Jr.'s father, the son, who looked and sounded and kind of was in the same vein as the father, was set up and framed in a robbery, who was still in jail when this song came out and was released, I think, the year after this. So it was just kind of having his daughter, like, picturing her father getting out and just questioning how fucked up, because like the police fabricated disclaims of him robbing a specific store only because he was going to be a black leader who would unite the minds of young black folk and encourage them to be better. And the fact that when that would happen, they get labeled as black terrorists or some bullshit. I mean, the FBI essentially, if I'm not mistaken, was created to take out the Panthers, which were really trying to unite people. Yep. And I mean, I don't know that every tactic the Black Panthers used was legal.
They got a little violent.
but I also don't know enough about them. And I'm not against violence for the sake of a bigger purpose. If your people are being persecuted to the level that I understand it to be, maybe violence was necessary.
But I think that was the difference. I think that was the difference between the two, I'm going to say two main leaders at that time, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. One was violent, and a little bit more aggressive in his tactics, whereas Martin Luther King was still.
But even still, Malcolm X was like, it wasn't like he was advocating violence. It was more like, it was
do what you could do what you got to do.
Don't let people attack you and shit. Like, if you have to defend yourself, do what you got to do. And I think that's a fair statement. All things considered.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know enough about those topics, but I'm starting to understand that it's definitely deeper than the pop level messaging goes.
Yeah.
Then you got that second verse, which really does just kind of paint the picture of a person who kills somebody, etc., and ends up in jail all over almost the environment of it. And it's really good storytelling, and it is a really big transition, but it's to show that there's two sides to this prison shit. There's the side where if you do the right thing, you go to jail. And if you do the wrong thing, you go to jail.
Yep.
And no matter what, you're in jail. But then to go even bigger, if you're in the projects, he's kind of correlating at the end. Stick man, you ain't got to be locked up to be in prison. Look how we live in 30,000 a day up in the Bing standard routine. They put us in a box just like our life on the blocks. So there's almost this comparison to being in the projects,
Yep.
being in these tall apartments and these small things, and comparing that existence to being in prison.
You're basically just
And-
surrounded by cement either way, or concrete or whatever.
So I gave it a 4.5 because the song very much inspired me and was really powerful, and just had a pretty decent series of hooks and well-written shit, so I liked it more. And then the Spanish part where it's just showing it's not just us. This is a big fucking problem.
Yep.
Welcome to America. Anyway, the next song on the album is called Assassination.
Got pulled to cut the bullshot to warm your flesh like wool. These tools for survival make.
I'll have you know, I also read The Art of War by Sun Tzu in a couple of fucking days. I think it took me 2 or 3, and I mostly read it while pooping. That's what's up. I mean, it's one of the best
There you
brags
go.
I've ever heard in a rap song. I'm not gonna lie, because he's just like, I figure my head, them ass kissing is dead. We learned the chokeholds with fisherman's thread. Murderous. I read The Art of Sun Tzu in a couple of fucking days. I'm like, I don't know if that's on the same level, but I like that you're doing that. I like that you're equating reading a book to the same level as murdering with fishnets. That's dope. That is some hella cool shit. I'm a big advocate of reading, if you couldn't tell. Used to practice kung fu with this. That's like double my age, and you can put this on my government's grave. Somebody praying for the way we have to suffer and slave. Assassination, word up. And it's just like, you can tell that like they're mad about the situation that they're living in. People are poor, they're being taken out. Like murderation, modern handgun education, price of your life is going up. It ain't inflation. And you just get the sense that like they want people to die, you know, in the way that these guns are going around, and it's almost like worth it for people to have this happen in an almost economic way, because if this dude kills that dude, he can put that dude in jail, and etc., and it's a really fucking, as you said, fucked up situation. Anyway, and then it kind of has this like aggressive kind of cop back feel going on to it, you know. And then the second verse, like, cops drive down the streets and blow my friends away. I try to smoke enough loud to take my sins away. It's just powerful. Like, just have to consider it. Like, and this is something that I see people posting about in Montreal. So evidently the cops go ahead and put people away up in Canada too for certain things. But I imagine that, you know, in New York, in certain areas, it's got to be kind of real fucked up. Or are they from New York? Actually,
M1 is from Brooklyn, and
Stickman
is originally from Tallahassee, Florida.
Okay, but in both those places, cops can be a little bit assholes, is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And then I hope they get the assassins. I hope something is done to them. Problem is they're killing them. It reminds me of something like what happened to Lincoln. You ain't even safe with a full clip. I swear on the president's grave, I'm sick of living in this bullshit. We down to take it to full length, meet us at Capitol Hill, and we can get in some real shit. Pop. I was like, oh, so he's like, I'm willing to bet that maybe some Secret Service people may have showed up and interviewed them. Because, like, I know they did that for Eminem and that shit, but if you make, and it's bold, and they put that shit out, and they were like, yo, if y'all are ready to ride, we'll be the first ones there to kill the fucking, you know, I don't want to finish Descendants and piss off and trigger some shit, but like,
I mean, not quite Kathy Griffin style, but up there.
but like really bold. And why? Because Kathy Griffin's just fake as fuck in the way that it came off to me. Like, it just seemed like a pandering move.
Yeah.
This shit sounds like revolutionaries who really, really dream about this shit and obviously aren't going to do it because it's a little impractical. But to take the fantasy, yeah, if you're mad at your system and shit's not changing, it's like, you know what?
Start from the top.
This might get the point across. That motherfucker, the president or the prime minister, these are the people fundamentally making the executive decisions keeping you down. They're the ones enforcing the situation. Even if corporations lobby for Congress and blah, blah, blah. The fact is, take them all out is more the sentiment is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
It's not
Well, you have to kind of, you know, scrap it and start again.
So it's not necessarily like a call of assassination, but it's fucking cool. I gave it a 4.35 on 5. It's short, it's sweet, it comes in hard, it does what it's got to do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have too much to say about this one, actually. I like the nice hand drums that is featured at the beginning, and there's like a kid giving like a speech, like a pretty powerful one. And overall, I found like the tone kind of like a somber kind of sounding. And just exactly like what you said, like they're basically coming after their government for everything that they have done to them, because essentially there's nobody to blame except for, you know, the government allowing all of this shit to continue on happening for years and for centuries, and it just sucks. And they kind of do talk about, you know, assassinating the president, who at the time was Bill Clinton, because they want something to change.
Was it?
Yeah.
Bush hadn't come in yet?
Nope. He was in 2001.
Okay.
And so I mean, he was, you know, Clinton was the president in like the 90s, and you know, around this time, I guess. So, I mean, overall, this one sounds good, and there's still like the kind of fire underneath it, but it didn't appeal to me as much as the rest of them. I get a 4.25.
It's fair. There is a lot of revolutionary shit going on. Now, we need to take a break. See, I got this beautiful lady next to me, and we ain't got to take our clothes off or anything. We can have this stimulating conversation. We can get all up into titillating our brain cells and neurons over a chess game and some other shit. Ooh,
We don't have a
girl,
chessboard.
just hearing your brain talk, just hearing the words coming out your mouth, conversating, that's some mind sex.
It's time for some mindset. We ain't got to take our clothes off yet.
This is definitely something that is not what you would expect to ever hear any rapper do.
Yep.
I think that's a good way to put it. The video may just be one of the worst music videos I've ever seen in my life for something sincerely trying. It's all weird and colorful, and they're all like see-through X-ray, and they do a stinger where you like puff on the weed and you blow it into your partner's mouth, and it's a cute little foreplay move, and the video's garbage. And they even keep the whole outro part, which is something. So I mean, it kind of has this intro or the chorus. It's time for mind sex. We ain't got to take our clothes off yet. We can burn the incense and just chat, relax. I got the good vibrations. Before we make love, let's have a good conversation. Mm-hmm. I have not actually met a girl in my entire dating life who enjoyed calling it making love. I'm gonna throw it out there. None of them like the term. I don't know when it got popular. I don't know what girls want to make love. I have not met girls who want to make love.
I feel like it's like
You can make love with the girl, but you gotta not call it making love, because it's weird. It's some weird.
I feel like, I don't know. Some people probably like it. I don't know.
It sounds like some old people shit. But basically, you have the first verse where he's like literally just talking her up, like, "Pardon me, love, but you seem like my type. What you doing tonight? You should stop by the site." I'm like, where the fuck is the revolutionary? Nah, we gotta throw it away now.
Well, he's horny now.
Yeah, but he's horny for mind sex, which is like the delayed gratification of flirting and having foreplay where you eat a salad. And that's a good move. Eating a salad is smarter before sex because you keep yourself a little empty. You don't get so bloated.
And he eats a healthy lifestyle.
He's very healthy. I was reading an AMA.
We will find out.
An AMA on Reddit, man, and M1 is fucking serious. I don't know if this is M1, but he's like, somebody asked if you eat pineapples on pizza, and he's like, yeah, but only if the pizza's gluten-free and the cheese is dairy-free, and it's just fucking like, man, he was hyper-vegan. That's cool, though. I respect it. No disrespect intended. But, man, they're hardcore about it. Still, promoting salad as part of foreplay is a good and healthy move. Before the night's through, we could get physical, too. I ain't trying to say I don't want to fuck, because I do. And that's important, fellas, because you want to not maybe go for it right away. But when you are in that mind sex kind of game where you're trying to like get into a stimulating nature, you will get friend zoned if you don't make it clear in some way that you do want to intercourse her, because she might just misinterpret all that as you want to be friends. So in the midst of chatting up her mind and etc., you got to stare at her tits and be like, listen, I know, but you're just so beautiful. Like, you don't do it creepily. You just get caught that one time and play it off, you know? Like, you act in a certain way. She gets the point, oh, he does find me sexy. Because if she's feeling you, that's a good thing, fellas. It's some man sex. Anyway, you get that connection going, and making love is just I did it to her, and it worked. But for me, boo, making love is just as much mental. I like to know what I'm getting into. And it's true. We talked a lot on our first date, like straight till like 2 a.m. It was like 8 hours of just stimulating conversation and some making out at the old Port of Montreal. That's some top level shit. You get in her head, you hook it, line and sinker, and then when you do make love,
I was like, who is this
it's pretty
weirdo?
fucking explosive. And the second verse is the same kind of shit. It's just cheesy, up there with Big Daddy Kane type shit. Big Daddy Kane is still the Big Daddy lame of this shit. But this is right up there, man. Wait, let me guess, boo. You probably like poetry. Here's a little something I jotted down.
Oh, God.
And it's like, what? So you wrote this poem for a random girl you haven't met yet, and that's supposed to be... Listen, first verse guy, he had some game. Second verse guy, it's not as good. It's a little bit creepier. It's fine. It's totally good.
While she was in the bathroom, you know, calling her friend, being like, I don't really know if I'm into this guy or not, blah, blah, blah,
He's
blah.
like,
or whatever.
I gotta write you a poem.
Gotta do it real quick.
So let me tell you, girl, you are the yin to my yang, the balance that means complete change. And I get what they're doing. It's some like nice ethereal poetry. I'm just saying dude 1 kills it a lot more than dude 2. That hook is unforgettable. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't really know. It's just unforgettable. But the outro is lamer than Big Daddy Lame. That outro is something else. Now, if you guys find it to be like super romantic and shit and all that crap, I don't agree. I think it's just so over the top. Like, maybe that worked once upon a time, but I can't see that being the game you want to run to like anybody under the age of 30 today. It's just like, let me describe in deep details all of the obsessive ways this woman is something that I'm obsessed with. It just that's how it comes off to me. Yeah. And he's just kind of there in the video doing it all. And I'm like, this is where the song loses points. Because it's okay. It's interesting. And then this is like obsessive mind sex. This is like when you take the mind sex and you jack it up, but she hasn't fully reciprocated yet. And you're just kind of looking at her pictures on Instagram.
Quite like that.
I don't know. It sounds all right. I mean, I love the idea of like promoting foreplay and taking your time and connecting spiritually and stuff.
Well, I think that's what it is. I think it is obviously he has a different scope from, you know, a lot of the other rappers that, you know, we all know who just are like there to like fuck all the ladies and like they don't give a shit. Where like this guy is like, you know, he wants to like connect and like, you know, talk to you first. And he's like, slow down. Like, you know, like he's taking his time. He wants it to be like a good experience. Yeah.
All things considered, I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it a 4.25, mostly because of the outro. I didn't enjoy the outro, but I like the concept because when I thought about my more successful sexual escapades in my life, it played out better with the mind sex approach than it did with here's some expensive toy, bitch, suck a dick. Like, that tactic doesn't work very well to me, but that's what most hip-hop makes it sound like. Here, I'll put a stack of money on your ass as it jiggles, and you will ride my dick. That's It's not a realistic approach to sex for most of us. I mean, it might be, but not for most of us.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, like, this one is just, it's very different from like any of the songs that we've heard, either on this album or in general, in terms of like sex songs. It is like it's definitely no like Jay-Z. This one is like all about like, like I said, going slow and really just getting to know each other. And he needs to be like in a healthy and honest like headspace for him to like really like get into it sexually and to like be, really aroused. And like I said, he's very much more for like making love rather than just fucking, a girl. Like it's very, it's a more of like an intimate thing. And I suppose that's what sex is, I guess, like for, what, I don't know, some people, but,
it's for you too.
And yeah, sometimes for me too, where, there is like sometimes, anyways, I'm not going to go into like what I would like sexually, but anyways, that's just what it is. He just wants to like chill, smoke some weed with the girl, get to know her, and then like, kind of go into it a little bit slowly. And then he talks about the fact that he wrote a poem for her, which I just was like, when did this happen? But like, I don't know if this is like...
It sounds like he just wrote the poem ready to go to give to any girl.
Which is like just the worst. Like nobody wants a generic poem that you're writing and you're reading this to like every girl to get her into bed. Like that's just bleh. But I'm sure it happens. And it's just sort of like the anticipation and like seeing her fully clothed and just like imagining like what's like under her clothes, and like that is more like titillating and exciting for him. Like, when you get like the butterflies at the beginning when you're just like first fantasizing about someone and like, you're with them and you're just like so intrigued by everything about them, and like just like that kind of thing. It's that sort of feeling
before they get annoying.
Before he gets annoying. Yeah. And in this case, it seems like the woman is really like man's partner. Like he's on an equal playing field with her. Like he really trusts her and like respects her. And I think that that's like a really good, positive message. I feel like, like women would appreciate this. And he talks about how beautiful her black body is, and like, how he really appreciates women, especially, obviously black women in this case, where he just thinks it's the most beautiful thing. And, I suppose it is, for him at least. And it just seems to be like his approach on love. It doesn't necessarily seem like a gross song. It's, it's kind of nice. Yes, it's cheesy, but it's different and it's nice, and it's essentially like what women want growing up, in Prince Charming, like that, you want someone that's going to like listen to them and not necessarily just like like, like go at you. But so like this is like a nicer sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
I give it a 4.5.
We want freedom.
Yes.
Fuck the goal and the party. Train yourself, clean your shouty. Tell me what you gonna do to get.
Imagine no running water to drink. Chemicals contaminate the pipes leading to your sink. Imagine that it took Jaden Smith to deal with Flint, Michigan, because frankly the government just didn't give a fuck.
Yep.
And I mean, that Flint, Michigan's not solved yet, right, folks? Just to throw it out there. It's not like the kids that got lead poisoning. Oops. It's a oopsie, as PewDiePie would say, a big oopsie. And that's just
Aaron Brockovich.
It's just kind of the end of it, right? Nah, it's fucked up. So, I mean, this starts off with like, it's a little thing from, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this word, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, a 1973 movie in which a light-skinned brother is responding to what he feels has been an accusation that he's insufficiently black. And I dated a mixed black girl who is of Jamaican descent, and she went through a lot of that questioning if she was black enough, and so that's some fucked up shit that I don't fully understand, but I know it's a real thing. But just the idea that even though the black community is not accepting him per se, the fact is the white people are still going to see him as a black guy and treat him accordingly, and it's pretty bad news bears. And then, yeah, man, the beginning is just like this rallying cry. Shit's fucked up, and we gotta like organize and get our shit together, because what other choice do we have? Which is an interesting point. And you know what? If shit really, really hits the fan like it could in the next few years, it's like it's a more realistic thing than people would maybe like to admit, you know? And then you look at, he brings up something that's so relevant in 2019 that like everybody knows about the Flint, Michigan water situation.
Yep.
And then, you know, just think, if the grocery stores close their doors and to saturate the streets with tanks and start martial law, would you be ready for civil war? Could you take the life of somebody you know or have feelings for if necessary? He got cousins in the military and he cut them off because they enlisted. That's an interesting point that I think about. I really do think about. If shit hits the fan and there's potential civil war of sorts that could happen, and it's not implausible that with the divisive nature of life that shit doesn't escalate, what side do you pick? And if you pick a side, were you willing to kill and do what you need to do? You know, like, that's if you choose to take a side, but those are really tough questions that I don't think a lot of people are willing to ask themselves, because most people don't really want to pick a side, and that is in and of itself an interesting thing. I like when he's like, we in the second verse, we need more than MCs, we need Hueys and revolutionaries. On the streets today, it's kind of scary to smell around my way ain't roses or strawberries. In fact, it's kind of poisonous, bringing out the boyiness, but I'ma stand up on my own like a man, dominate the land and make wealth like Fu Manchu. And it's like, we need to step up and be more than just MCs and rappers and get wealth. We need to create social change and create real wealth within our communities and shit. And I see that need here. I mean, I'm watching my community change, and it's fucking weird. It's definitely gonna not be what it used to be because of gentrification and shit like that. And there's a lot of people who are gonna get left behind in this process because nobody really wants to invest in this community. So we try to shop a little locally, if you know what. But like, really, it's just this kind of stuff that's on my mind. I'm gonna read a book on gentrification soon. Either way, third verse is like, yo, we want peace, but the problem is crackers want a bigger piece, as in of the pie. Got it where the can't get a piece. That's why police get stabbed and shot, because can't eat it, the av is hot. Locked up, you get 3 hot meals in a cot, then you sit and rot, never even get a fair shot. And it's just like, if you think about the situation, everybody wants peace. Nobody really wants the violence. But if the white population, let's say the negative side, is going to continually drain the resources from everybody,
Agreed.
and allow the hood to suffer the way it does, to cut welfare programs, to just make it harder and harder, then it's almost like, fuck it, if the cop's going to lock us up, we have to kill the fucking cop because there's no way to eat otherwise because your kid's crying. And like, I mean, a lot of people don't really think about it, but so many of these people are just trying to feed their kids. Like, somehow stealing a loaf of bread to feed your kids okay if you're white, but it's a jailable thing if you're black.
Yeah.
Because like in the white hood, you talk about stealing a loaf for kids and it's okay, and people will always make concessions for the kids. But when you sell some crack to feed your kids, it's the same thing, kind of. Like, I mean, obviously it's not stealing a loaf of bread, but why are we okay with crime for that motivation, but we're not okay with it? And, you know, like, it's just fucking, oh, really? It's because the guy's black and it's his fault and this is scary crime. I don't know. It's just sad. And then you got, like, the hook and the bridge. Like, I don't want to be no movie star. I don't want to drive no fancy car. I just want to be free to live my life. And I love that because that's kind of how I feel. And then, you know, like, a hook is like, yo, just because you don't think it can happen to you, it can. Be ready. Mm-hmm. And I like this track. I thought it was powerful, just like the rest of the album. It's got a good vibe to it. It's right in that 4.35 range. It doesn't feel like top tier novelty in terms of what it's bringing to the table. And I don't mean that like disrespectfully. Like, some of these songs are really fucking unique. Mm-hmm. And then this feels more in the general revolutionary, charged up scope of the album, which I'm not disrespecting. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, this song starts off with like a speech from a movie that you mentioned, and I think I've heard it before featured in like another song by someone else. I couldn't place it. So this is basically black people aren't sure what to do anymore, and that's kind of what he's saying he's trying to get everyone to encourage everyone to work together as one, because everyone trying to do their own separate thing isn't necessarily going to work, and everyone needs to unify and fight for one main kind of cause or issue and deal with that first, and then everything else can kind of fall into place, hopefully. And he talks about exactly like the water not being drinkable from your taps, and like we are still seeing in Flint, Michigan, and again, like this is in Canada, I know that there are Native and Inuit communities that haven't had access to clean water and had a boil water advisory for years and years, same sort of thing. So it's just that there are these communities and people that just kind of get neglected by governments. And, obviously they're talking about, Black people in Canada. It's not obviously, but it is still kind of a Native issue that's happening here, where we kind of look the other way. And that's unfortunate for everybody, and it just kind of leaving people to suffer for their own greed, for the government, and it just sucks. And they just want to be free from like oppression, and because they feel like so much control and force from the government, and it's everything about their lives, and it's the jails where they end up, and it's the life that they live, and it's everything that's kind of just constantly they're being monitored and watched and everything, and it's just I don't know, it's out of control. And how white people are still greedy and want more power and control and land, etc. And that's why other people are forced to suffer because of that greed. And it really makes sense that people don't trust those in charge if they're not helping them, if they're only making their situation worse. And it's again another strong song. There's a sort of a reminder that there's still fight to be had, so be prepared, be ready to do what you have to do, basically. And it just kind of sounds like they've had enough, and that they need a new leader. They need somebody to guide them again as a whole group of people, in the same way that it was in the 60s. Like there's still a lot of issues going on, and there wasn't that one main leader, and I think that's kind of what was missing at this time. So I gave it a 4.5 on 5.
All right, so apparently one of the things that helped Dead Prez get famous was throwing apples into the crowd, as they would holler at them shit like, be healthy.
Prepare your foods, cause you don't wanna lose vitamins and minerals, and that's the jewel.
What I was not expecting to learn is that Dead Prez may have written the vegan fucking
anthem.
I don't eat no meat, no dairy, no sweets, only ripe vegetables, fresh fruit, and whole wheat. And he's hard about it, 100% sincere. Mm-hmm. It lines up with every proper health advice you'll see. Honestly, if you look at health science, if you were to switch away from meats towards all the proper, healthier, vegetable-based proteins, and basically if you do all the awful shit that you don't want to do because you're fat like me and you want to keep eating all the crap, I'm working on it. I'm adapting my life. I'm being healthier slowly. Haven't drank a lot of soft drinks this year. That's a huge step up, but still, we're poisoned by sugar and a bunch of other shit, curried falafel, barbecue tofu. This shit sounds terrible to me. No candy bars, no cigarettes. Okay, I can live with that. Only ganja and fresh squeezed juice from oranges. Exercising daily to stay healthy, and I rarely drink water out the tap. If somebody made the
freshly squeezed orange juice for me, that would just make my life so much easier.
But yeah, basically, it's just kind of proper healthy eating shit. And then with the idea, if you are what you eat, then you should eat healthy because it's important. Lentil soup is mental, fruit and ginger root is good for you, and fresh vegetable with them, whatever. And it's really what it is, man. Careful how you season and prepare your foods because you don't want to lose vitamins and minerals. And it's very important, right? Because it's true. like food is like chemistry, so you have to be aware and you got to learn how to do it all right, and it's definitely a journey I'm not going to be into. But in like 5 years, when I've shed quite a lot of weight and I look healthier, it's because inevitably I caved and listened to the fine folk. Like even KRS-One, man, and the gospel of hip-hop brings up the exact same fucking dietary shit.
Yep.
It's just everywhere. You can't escape it at this juncture of life. And then they have an outro, which is apparently making fun of a little bit of Prodigy of Mobb Deep's classic monologue from the infamous Prelude, where they take on that note, and it feels kind of Wu-Tangy a little bit too, as it's like describing how people ingest a bunch of poison into their bodies, and we need to be a little bit smarter. And so again, going real hard about healthy ingestion and whatnot. So I think that is fucking super cool in general, because it is taking this educational tone. Like this album is like turning into this well-rounded intellectual love, all these different aspects of how to maintain a healthy person so that you can achieve freedom. And part of that is eating healthy.
Take care of yourself so that you can get to achieving freedom.
So it's pretty fucking cool. I mean, this song is definitely cool. Like, it's a 4.5 on 5. It definitely is one of those songs that when I listen to, I become like, I feel like, shit, I'm a healthy sloth of a person who does it. I mean, I've been exercising more, and I've been actually making many healthier choices in my current life. If you look at my earlier podcast, I was less healthy then. And now I feel it in my body, but like, man, you don't like change. Like, can you imagine actually giving up sugar? I mean, that's the end goal. That's what's coming one day, and that's miserable to me. Like we have bullshit cake in the fridge, and I've been kind of
Hey,
sneaking
I made
it.
that cake.
It's bullshit Betty Crocker cake mix cake, and I don't know
It's
why.
so
I don't even
sweet
really
and awful.
enjoy it, but I'm so addicted to sugar that throughout the day I like to snack on it. It's terrible. I should be eating fruits instead, and I'm hooked on the narcotic effect of terrible food, and it's awful, and it really is like drugs. And I feel like slowly I work to break my addiction by vilifying these things in my head. Anyway, songs like this help. They help me on my journey, so it helps me be healthy. Thank you, Dead Prez.
Yep. Hold on, I've got something in my eye. I can't get it out. It sounds kind of like a Spanish guitar. And then there's like water sounds featured in it, especially like at the beginning. And you know, basically, like you kind of said what it is. They try to eat healthy by eating, you know, not consuming meat or dairy, or and they only eat whole foods. Sort of like I think it's, what is it, the paleo diet? It sounds like that's kind of what they're on. And just like eating natural and using food for, you know, to build you up and to as an energy source, as your medicine, as your healing, as, you know, if you're not feeling well, use food in instead of medicine. And I know there's lots of people that do that. I do aspire to be a person like that. I do have a hippie gene in me, and I do wish that I could just get my hands around doing that kind of stuff.
Let's eat a lot of salad. Let's get the ice cream.
It's hard.
That's the grocery store trip every fucking time.
So yeah, it's trying to find that balance. And then, you know, he definitely talks about drinking like 8 glasses of water a day because, you know.
Okay, look, his reasoning is fucking terrible because that's what they say. That is possibly the worst rhyme because it almost goes in contradiction to the blind acceptance
because
of
who makes these rules?
the same people that you're criticizing for everything else. I mean, it's funny how when it's convenient to your argument, it becomes a good. I'm not really trying to criticize.
This was also written elsewhere. You know.
I'm just saying because that's what they say is not a good reasoning on the Revolutionary album.
Says it.
But it is true that you should probably drink that much water every single day because it's good for your skins and shit and all sorts of stuff.
Everything out. It keeps
and
everything going.
honestly, the more you get into drinking water, like mostly what I drink now is water and black coffee. I know, but black coffee is like fucking drugs, so I like it. And water, it's also like drugs, so I like it. Water makes me feel less thirsty. It makes me feel a certain way. And if you look at the chemical reaction to like how your body reacts to the different substances, water is a fun one. I don't know.
Yep.
You should drink a lot of it. And
go have a glass right now.
even that, so the 2 liters a day that you drink is fair. It's fair science per se, but it was mostly his rationale I didn't like because the rest of that verse is so tight. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Bonnie was describing a little bit. Did you give a grade?
No, I'm just finishing up. But I think this one is cool. And it's just basically like a reminder to be healthy. But then he says that weed is good. It is, a medicine from nature, I guess. And that people need to start caring, especially Black people, if, they're going to be rising up. That people need to be more aware of what they're putting into their bodies so that they can be better, stronger individuals and a whole people as a whole, I guess. So obviously this is something that they're very passionate about, and it's cool stuff. I gave it a 4.25.
All right. So in order to eat healthily, you definitely need discipline.
Me, baby, one love. Yeah,
Discipline makes
So dude gets a phone call, and buddy's like, yo, let's come do fun shit. He's like, nah, I got shit to do today. But you can have fun, put it off. No, I'm gonna be responsible and apply discipline. Let's sing about it. It's gonna be alright.
Yep.
Discipline, practice makes perfect. Discipline, health is wealth, yo. Discipline, all things in moderation. Plan your work your plan. He's so right. This is a song about organizing your life and applying discipline. Oh shit, like half the books I read are about like how businesses get organized, and he's planning and time management and efficiency, and this is a good one. This is like, I'm learning how to be a more disciplined person. You can ask Bonnie.
Yeah.
There are entire Saturdays where from like 7 in the morning to like 11 p.m. I'm at it, like disciplined like a motherfucker for the most part. She hates it, but that's totally fine. Discipline does make things easier, and organizing your life makes such a big difference, right? Because we all have dreams and goals and we all want to move forward. So if you apply that discipline to follow this plan that you make, then even if you make mistakes or it's a slow progress, you turn it into something. Like on November 2016, I was like, I'm on a podcast. So we started podcasting, and we didn't know what we were doing. And now we know a little bit about what we're doing. And we know how we did that through discipline, through vigilant sticking with it, and applying self-control habits to learn more and to study the culture and to, apply a discipline to the way we approach these reviews so that people weren't showing up unprepared, not looking at the albums properly. Maybe there were times where you winged it before a Raekwon review and found out that you don't wing it for Only Built on Cuban Links, because that's an album that I kind of didn't prepare enough for, and I got murked in the comments. And so, I don't know, discipline's important, and I like it, and it's a good song. I mean, it's so fucking corny, and it's so fucking cheesy, but I like how they took a subject like discipline and made it fun. Like, this is a mantra for yourself, and they're self-aware that discipline is not fun. Mm-hmm. But it does make your life better. It does help you organize shit. And the only way to work your plan is through discipline. 4.5 on 5. Keep at it, Dead Prez.
Yeah, so it starts off, there's the nice phone call. He has to basically say no to hanging out with his buddy because he's got stuff to do. And, it is hard to say no, but, you have to do... like what you need to do in your life and like what your goals are. Personally, I am not very good with discipline, but I try. I fail all the time, but I try.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. And and everything is just about being healthy, and it definitely relates to the previous song on here. They kind of tie together a little bit. Health is wealth, and accomplish your goals, and then you can have fun. And I would definitely say Holden is a much better example of that kind of lifestyle than I am.
Thanks. I'm terrible at it. I look at guys like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and their discipline, and I'm like, that's what I want to be one day.
But you're much better at it anyways. But and you've improved. Anyways, and it's nice, it's groovy, it's a good reminder, like especially after the last song where it's, you have to discipline yourself to be healthy in the food that you eat and in like the lifestyle that you live and everything. And if you choose to be, keto or vegan or whatever it is, like you definitely have to stick to it, and it is a discipline. That's why a lot of people don't do it, because it is very hard, and it's hard to like maintain that standard, I guess. So I give it a 4.25. It's good, but it's not necessarily my favorite.
So first we talked about being healthy here. Well, first we talked about how we want freedom. In order to get that freedom, we need to be healthy. In order to achieve health, we need discipline. In order to obtain discipline, you need an understanding of psychology. I do believe this shit's connected.
World will have to speculate that this is what we learn in the streets. Fuck a degree, believe in none of.
Mr. Lord Jamar helped produce this beat. He put that laugh in, I'm assuming, because that creepy laugh is there like the whole way through. And I don't know if it is, but in my imagination, that's actually Lord Jamar with a morphed voice. And it could be. It could not be, but it also could be. And I don't know. I like Lord Jamar. I've been watching him for like 2 years on Vlad TV talk about shit, and I very much enjoy watching him talk about shit. I don't know how relevant he is, but he isn't the first one lately to say that Eminem is not something you play in the hood while committing crimes. He's just not the first. He's just the most recent. Either way, that's not related to this review. I like how it starts off. I was born in a dump. My mama died and my daddy got drunk. He left me to die and grow in the middle of Tobacco Road. I grew up in a rusty shack. And it's a version of Tobacco Road by John D. Loudermilk, who I've never heard of, to be honest. All I owned was hanging on my back, and Lord knows that I love this place called Tobacco Road. You're filthy and dirty. You're going to get me some dynamite and a cane and blow it all up. Lord knows I'm going to start all over again. And it's almost like being born into this awful circumstance with this terrible situation and the impact it has, and how you almost have to destroy that environment around you in order to get out of it and achieve something better. And then M1 starts us off, and this beat is fucking hype. Like, this shit's fucking intense. It's militant. This is like that. It's got that power that maybe some of the 4.35 tracks didn't have in this. And even the only thing I don't like is the laugh. Get rid of the laugh, and this shit's fucking perfect. Fuck what you heard. I'm from Africa. That ain't no act. It's mathematical. Past the black radical. I choose the M1 because it's practical. Nothing was changed. We ain't protected. No names. It's all factual. It's just strong. It comes in like we are protecting ourselves. We are not actually like radical, in my opinion. I think it's more we're looking at the facts of a situation. We're understanding the truth of a situation, and this is what's up. And I don't know, flows in. This is what we learn in the streets. Fuck a degree. Believe in none of what you hear and half of what you see. So to be a skeptic, to understand that people are lying to you all the way through it, and you have to be aware of the situation. And then Stickman's verse 2 takes it in a different way. It's like watching your own father smoke crack. Whew, what a start, man. Right? Like, you just... I don't know what that's like.
Well, that definitely would fuck you up, like, and that's, something that a psychologist would probably start with, if that was an implication in your life.
I have nightmares on shit like that. No way in hell I'll ever get like that. I've seen a lot of shit in 22 years. It's like a tour of duty. My life is booby-trapped. It's hard to see the beauty when your heart is turning ice cold. And just the whole way it flows in, it's like... You look at this person whose environment is so dark and so powerfully... negative that you no longer can see the good things in life because everywhere you turn it's fucking terrible. And I like how he's like, yeah, my mom's a really smart person, but when she talks about Jesus, fuck that shit, otherwise I'm listening, And then the chorus, don't let them get in your head. They try to probe you. Figure your thoughts out so they can control you. Figure your thoughts out so they can put targeted ads all over the place and get you to buy shit. Honestly, it's really true what they're saying in this chorus. And through you, control your whole crew. A psychology boy. Now, what the fuck that make you want to do? So if you think about Instagram influencers and shit, it's almost like you can target the right 27 people or the right rap. Like, I think how like 20 pop rappers can essentially influence like 1 million youth, right? So if the right 20 rappers talk about getting Gucci stock goes up. because that's how much money gets made off of it and shit. And it's fucked
absolutely.
up. It's basic. And marketing is highly
especially, like, when
linked to
there's-
psychology.
There's people who are, Gucci Mane, like, it's just like, it's in like their names and stuff like that. And it's just,
He's cool though.
yeah.
That guy made a lot of money on a haircut. He spent $500 on a haircut and made so much money on that $500 haircut that it made it worth his $500 haircut. And how did he do it? Because you looked at the amount of retweets that fucking post got. That guy made money on that post. 100%. That's how the game works. Anyway, you can't walk the streets with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. And if you know the time, give me a sign. Tell me where we draw the line. I got your back if you got mine. My enemy's enemy is my man. One dreadlock is stronger than one strand. While the crackers got the upper hand, my comrades stand on land stolen. And it's just kind of almost looking like, yo, even if like we don't get along or whatever, we need to all unite and recognize that in our circumstance there is a common enemy using dark secrets and shit to keep us down and dividing the situation. And I like how he ends the verse. Commence to get rents, descendants to serve terms, jumping the fence, the black germ is loose. What will they learn? Psychology. And so it's just a matter of pointing out how if we can understand that there's a healing and a positive maybe approach, if we can understand the money and economic situation of our hood, maybe we can learn some shit or understand how people are keeping them down. And then, I don't know, the last kind of verse flows into maybe, again, banding up, guerrilla. We piss on the walls and smoke reefer in the halls. No respect for the laws that cut your face with a kitchen knife and gladiator. Turns man against machinery. The tree bark fatigues help me blend in with the scenery. Life is a series of serious choices. Theories is formed from experience, never mysterious forces. And so it's kind of pointing out that your entire life is the result of your experiences, your choices, and as much as I guess there is the environment, there is still also a semblance of you having control over the situation. And then they say karate means empty hands, so then it's perfect for the poor man. So like, if you have no money, whatever, you can still do karate and get that discipline, that type of shit. So it's almost like this empty hands form of thing, which is based around self-discipline and all the things that we've been touching on as a way to get control of your psychology.
And it's also a reminder that you are the weapon.
Yeah. And then, And then there's a little outro and whatnot, kind of pointing in a bit to the history. Overall, I really like this song a lot. It's a 4.7, 5 on 5. We're over the 2-hour point, at least on our end, so if it starts to be a little phasey, sorry about that. But for real, it's another one that's just overwhelmingly motivational to me, pumps me up, and it's really cool because, especially with a subject like psychology, that I really, really enjoy. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about that. I don't know what you wanted to say.
Well, I wanted to say a whole bunch as well. This one definitely sounds a little bit weird and creepy. It's a little bit different from some of the other ones. It sort of reminded me of like, I couldn't even place it, like maybe like a DMX-ish or someone, like there's been something that sounded like this before. But I can't quite place it. There's also been like a couple of songs on here that made me feel like the energy and passion of Ruby Ibarra as well, like the way she was fighting and kind of like, standing up for her people. So I think that that's like a similarity if you're looking for someone else who's similar but different, just to mention. This is just sort of about the realities of living in the hood and how hard it is to grow up seeing and hearing and like, some really hard shit that, you often hear people in like these sort of ghetto type areas or projects or whatever, where it's just like, you're surrounded by people who are doing drugs, who are committing crimes, who are going through some really dangerous, hard-hitting things. And it's very hard to clear your mind and to change your thoughts when these are your realities. And it's very difficult for you to change. But if you can, like, he's basically kind of saying, like, you can be freer. Like, you can be free and, get away from, like, that kind of negativity. But society kind of makes you believe that you should do certain things or you have to attain certain things to achieve and to be successful. But they don't want you to be controlled. And so, like, that's why you need to make, like, your own choices to be different and to be wiser and not necessarily follow, like, what everybody else is doing or what, like, the mainstream is doing. because like what white people are doing doesn't work for them. And, you know, like it's not the same sort of situation. Like they're not in the same, you know, they're not in the same circumstances as like a lot of white people, and like the way society was designed for them. And he's saying we need to do things differently in order to like rise up. And so I think that that's kind of, again, it's a similar kind of message that's kind of flowed throughout this whole album. So I think that that's again a sort of a message, but understanding that they have gone through a lot of shit, and that there is a lot of issues for them to like work out and kind of pull apart in terms of psychology. And black people are sort of, you know, allowing themselves to be trapped, but they need to change this life and to change their thought process. You know, that's kind of what he's saying here. And if not, like, you know, they'll stay poor and nothing will change. And so that's why, again, he's sort of like, you're reminding everybody that you're in control of your life, and you can make that change, and you can be, you know, different and wiser. And, you know, as much as you've gone through shit, try to do things positively and, you know, make a difference for the rest of your community, I think is sort of what he's trying to say. This is another one where it's, you know, kind of like a stand up and fight for your people and do, you know, something better for your community. And so this one is interesting. There's sort of an electric guitar featured in this one, which is very like,
yeah, it comes in at the end.
It's very like serious and intense.
It's
and
beautiful.
It's very, you know, and there is like a culture of electric guitars. When I always think of B.B. King. So like that's sort of like my thoughts, like it is, and you know, Jimi Hendrix and you know, other great guitarists. And just sort of, yeah, free your mind from negativities, and you will be a free person. And you have to change your way of thinking and not be trapped in your, you know, your own psyche, essentially, and get away from that and change your, you just be changed, change and be better, is the overall feeling. So I give this a 4.35.
All right, so the next track on this project is called Happiness.
It's all in the mind, let's unwind and find a reason to smile. I'm just glad to be alive, feeling fly.
This is just, to me, Dead Prez's version of It's a Good Day by Ice Cube. I mean,
All right.
it's also in the same vein of Psychology, now that we've learned about that a little bit. There's like lines like in the chorus, like happiness is all in the mind. Let's unwind and find a reason to smile. I'm just glad to be living, feeling fine, leaving my bad times behind feels great. No, we can't escape from the realness, but happiness is all in the mind, you know? So this is something that we debate a lot in my office place a lot. One of my colleagues is very keen on us all wishing each other a happy insert day of the week, because happiness is a state of mind that you choose to engage in or not. I'm not a fan of choosing happiness personally. I do enjoy a good amount of misery in my life, but the truth is, part of why, as some of you may have noticed, I'm a lot more calm and positive sounding on these podcasts is because I've been working towards choosing to be happy and to have a more positive outlook on life, because while the world is as dark and fucked up as it is, continually living in a negative cycle it just makes you miserable. And when you're miserable, the people around you are kind of miserable too, and it's just kind of this perpetual cycle. I mean, I got like nothing to say about the verses. It's like, yo, it's a beautiful day and everyone's feeling wonderful. The ladies is out looking fly, dressed comfortable. It's fine. Summer makes women more sexual. It's true. But that's not fully true. It's that, like, in the summer, I find the ladies is a little more willing to go through multiple people because everybody's out and about. And you don't want to be, like, locked down and you're going to be out. And if you're in a place
your
like...
summer fling or, like, whatever else.
Or even your summer flings and stuff. But then cuffing season starts when you're going to go settle down for the winter. And those same ladies will be like, I'll pick a guy out of the car and that'll be my dude for the winter.
I mean, it's not a bad one because public
true.
transportation.
And this
in the
one
winter
picked a
sucks.
guy without a car. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, have you ever heard the children play? Sometimes I feel the same way. I roll a joint and get away. Like, what? You getting high and that's how you get back to I mean, whatever. I'm not judging. It's just kind of the
Well,
weird.
I think it's also like his time to relax and kind of. Like,
I get
reminisce.
it. It's just a bit of a jump. Anyway, it's like a fun song on this album. This is the closest thing to a fun song, I think. It's enjoyable. It's like, yo, the world is not entirely awful and fucked up. We can have these good moments where we can puff our lie, bang our ladies, and enjoy the nice weather and the good times and shit. And again, happiness is a choice. It's like, I think, another key point of this song. Like, you have to find those moments, because as much as you're a revolutionary taking on the system and fucking shit up, you gotta smile every once in a while or you'll lose your fucking mind. Still, I give it a 4.25. It feels like, I understand its placement on this album is super relevant, but they do hard and angry a lot better than they do happy and joyful.
Yeah. I mean, this one sounds like something I've heard before, like maybe like inspired by, I don't really know. Like, it was like, it made me think of like Blue in Exile or J. Cole or like someone. There was like another album that sounded like similar to this song, and something about the flute, I don't know. And like
these guys came first.
Yeah. But like I can't remember the one who did like all the seasons.
Lupe Fiasco.
Completely not one of them. So that's who it is. That's who I think it sounds like. Yeah, so this is just sort of, there's a lot of shit for black people to deal with, and it's not easy, but sometimes you basically just have to stop and just be happy on the inside, because life sucks on the outside, and it's hard to just live in such a negative space. I think that's kind of what he's saying, is that there is a lot of shit that happens, but you have to like appreciate what you have and the beautiful things in your life and the beautiful things in life in general. And I think that's kind of what he's talking about, is more like nature and like appreciating like the green trees and appreciating the grass and the kids playing, and just like the happiness that's there, and just like those little things that people tend to like overlook and don't always necessarily appreciate, like, a bird chirping or flowers growing.
And there are birds chirping all over this beat.
Yeah. And so like that's kind of it. It's just to kind of be reminded that, you don't have to have a car to be happy. You can just appreciate grass. Like it's just as simple as that.
You can
in the
also
weed form,
appreciate grass.
Yes, as well. So, and then he talks about like not being able to like stay inside on such a beautiful day and going out and rollerblading and just like doing like those little things that you can do for yourself and that just feels good, and being outside, enjoying like the sun on your face and just enjoying the fact that you're living. And I think that that's great, and that you can kind of like transport yourself to like a happiness or a state of happiness, and he's kind of talking especially like when you're high. They do definitely, there is a sort of a theme of weed featured on here, but in more of like a more of a pensive useful tool. Like, I don't know, there's something more about it. And it just like to even just imagine being somewhere amazing, or imagining that you're in Jamaica and just surrounded by the beauty that exists there, and you can look at a picture of Jamaica and you can just imagine that you're there, and just kind of trying to find happiness in like a crazy fucked up world is sort of what he wants people to have. And it's fair enough, because why dwell on the negative when you can try to be happy? So I think that's pretty much the overall message to this one. I gave it a 4.25.
All right. The next one is about Animal Farm. It's called Animal and Man.
Shit got hectic, directed by Hannibal. The animals attacked. Old Sam was in a state of
Animal Farm is a commentary on communism, upon how the elite are evil and are going to exploit people. And it uses this metaphor of like animals to describe the story. So at first the humans are living easy because the animals are doing all the work. Then the animals band together and they kill all the humans and they take over the farm, which is basically just described in the first verse. Like, old man Sammy, get it? Uncle Sam had a farm, walked the land with the wife. Most of the time shit was calm. His whole life was maintained off to everyday labor, from the meals to the field, whatever. Pens through the whole story and really does an excellent job directing how this pig named Hannibal rallies up the animals to take over, and they cut his throat and they kill him and they take his thing. And there's the chorus coming in. Does the animal and man, does the animal and you, does the animal and man coming true? And then they go to the second verse, and they start to tell the story of what Animal Farm tells, where the pigs take over the farm and create this social order, and they describe how the horse, because he was strong, he had to go work, so the horse would just work harder and harder and harder until inevitably they literally work the horse to death.
Yep.
And shit like
And
that.
that's what happens in the book.
And that's kind of how they play it. But in this version, when the pigs rally everybody up and start talking about how anyone who's not a pig is less human and has to do different shit, they
All
say,
animals are equal.
and they bring up
Except
the
some
horse.
animals are more equal.
And that's when the horse specifically, the one who took the brunt, who could be viewed as black people in society doing the brunt of labor for other people, goes, fuck that shit, and then they kill and quarter and fucking destroy the pig. And then the song ends. And I'm like, okay, hella creative, hella cool. It's a really good thing. It's like what should have happened in Animal Farm. So, yeah, it's what should have happened. It's how do people, like, stay in control, you know?
I feel like Animal Farm did a pretty good job. I feel like George Orwell nailed it with that.
Right, but his was like a commentary of a predictive nature of what would happen given certain things. This is what should happen if those people try to do those things.
I guess.
So I give it a 4.5 on 5. It's hella dope.
Yeah, I mean, like right away when you get into this one, the beat is hella cool. You know, like you said, it's basically an Animal Farm story, or essentially like the story. And like the pigs are in charge, the farmer gets killed, and then the humans are basically just animals and have like the same instincts and are just like doing things the same way, sort of. And how, you know, then like the pigs talk about how they're going to rule, and the animals see through it, just kind of, you know, as see them just as like
The humans.
bad as the farmers. And they end up killing the pig, so they end up killing like the people in control, which is essentially like, you know, assassination. Like this is sort of like the same sort of, we're kind of back to that sort of message of like taking control again. And
But it's like taking control from the people that are trying to exploit you,
Yeah.
which the pigs lied to the animals, said, we'll lead you to victory, put us in charge, we got your back. And then the second they take power, they do the same shit that the humans did.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show. And so basically just sort of criticizing like the current government that was happening at the time. And they talk about like shaking hands and like how, you know, leaders, good leaders meet sometimes with bad leaders, and, or bad leaders, I guess, and how they shake hands with them, and like how like that's a symbol of respect. And so like, maybe, you know, he's kind of saying like, well, if it was me, I wouldn't be shaking hands
That's true.
with.
Because like Obama shook hands with Gaddafi and then got a hell out of him to get killed, or however that played out.
Yeah, and so like doing that kind of thing is kind of detrimental, and is sort of playing into, I don't know, the evils of the world. And so it is interesting, and the whole beat kind of sounds cool and ominous, and it's still pretty awesome. I gave it a 4.35. I think it's really cool.
All right. Well, you'll find a way through this review. Hopefully you're still with us. It's an instrumental.
Yep.
It's really well made. It's gorgeous to listen to. It is one of the most beautiful things on this album, just this music playing out the way that it does. I don't have a lot to say. It evolves a lot. It's really well put together. There's no raps. But like in a sense, it's called You'll Find a Way. And it has, and you think about it, it comes right after, like it's a little step by step of how you can rebuild within yourself the psychological and physical well-being to like take control. Describes through allegory, the way Orwell did, how you can take control, and then gives you the battle charge instrumentally to help you find your way. And it's just beautiful to listen to. And in a sense, it's like it could be looked at as a good place where like that little arc of the album kind of ends before they break the flow, but it's really fucking cool, and I give it a 4.5 on 5, and I think it's just one of the best instrumentals on the album. Like you could tell that they're
Well,
like,
it's the only
yo,
instrumental on the album.
well, I mean, no, all the beats are instrumentals. I meant like,
Okay.
I mean, yes, a song has an instrumental component to it, the instrument side, but in this case, it's just an instrumental
Yeah.
without like anything else on top of it. But it's almost like they heard the beat and were like, this is too good to rap on. And I'm feeling them like, dude, this is just really good.
Okay. I mean, I don't really have too much to say about this one, honestly. It's just sort of, I mean, it's an instrumental. So there's sort of like piano, and it sounds kind of happy, but like not like a pensive, like maybe like something that you would get high to and listen to and like reflect and try and think of something.
Way.
Exactly. And I mean, that's what it is. I'll give it a 4 on 5 because it's been a long one.
It's way better than that
4
instrumental.
on 5 is still good.
Like,
great.
it's just a great instrumental. Oh my gosh. Anyway, it's bigger than hip hop. Okay.
And want me freedom, burn the cash. Revolutionary love to the way we pass. Will they play it on the radio? Maybe not.
This beat is pretty fire, and this instrumental that was put together had Mr. Kanye West involved in the production of this track, which I thought was pretty fucking cool to see, like an early Kanye right over here, because yeah, that's what it is. It starts off and it's in the same vein as the original. One thing about music, when it's real, they get scared, get a slave and for the welfare, ain't no clothes and food, clothes, or healthcare. I'm down for guerrilla warfare. You know, it kind of feels like more of a battle cry than the last one. Like, the last one felt like it was a very big criticism of mainstream hip-hop culture and how it's like being portrayed. In this case, it seems to be more like, we real, everything's fake as fuck, and you know, it's still bigger than hip-hop because there's still a lot of shit going on out there. I like the chorus. If I feel it, I feel it. If I don't, I don't. If it ain't really real, then I probably won't. And that's a really cool idea. Like, that's just what it is. And then just shouting out hip-hop, kind of a little bit. Second verse, hip-hop means saying what I want, never bite my tongue. Hip-hop means teaching the young. If you feel what I'm feeling, then you hearing what I'm saying. Because these fake records just keep on playing. And, you know, it's just like kind of following suit. This is what the core elements of hip-hop is supposed to be about. So when you see these censored industry types that are just selling fake messages to people, it's bad news bears, and it's not a good thing. They are about freedom. They're about that revolutionary. They are real. Others are fake. They do the thing again. And then, you know, there's that third verse who has the featured act, what's his name? Tahir and the People's Army. I don't know who the People's Army. I guess the People's Army is their group.
Well, yeah, that's what he
and
said
so
at the beginning.
Tahir is like a dude from, anyway, a dog that label is a slave ship. A dog that label is a slave shit. Owners got them whips and rappers a slave. If you really want to eat, you got to hear the same thing. With the football b-ball, you slinging that dope. Ain't never seen the whole brainwash videos be fooling my folk and same sort of shit. But what I like about this one is their flows seem to be a little bit quicker. They're trying to go a little trickier with it. It's almost like a flashier version of the original. So I guess if you're going to make kind of a remix, and it's a bit of a remix,
Yeah.
then this is a cool way to go with it. I definitely think hip-hop is an epic song, but this is still really fucking close to it, right? And as a youth, I hadn't really listened to this, so I had a lot of trouble finding Hip Hop by Dead Prez, because you would think the other song's called Still Bigger Than Hip Hop and type that shit in, and it'd get confusing in the YouTubes back in the day. Still, I love this track almost as much as the first one. 4.75 on 5. Excellent.
This one starts off and it kind of sounds like they're like switching channels or whatever. And it's basically the same sort of start as hip hop, but like more into it. I don't know how else to describe it. So they're just sort of talking about the realities of the music industry. They talk about real life. They're ready to die for their message. Same sort of thing again. The choices are limited for them, and they have to rap or, like, you know, they turn to criminal activity for money. Like, this seems to be it. Like, these are the options for them. It's good, and it tells a similar sort of story and message as to the rest of the album. For me, like, it just wasn't as hard-hitting as hip hop, or maybe at this point in the album, like, I was just kind of like, ugh, getting like to be like enough. It's still good, but like I was just feeling
It is an hour and 7 minutes, this album.
and it's very dense.
This might be in the top 10 longest podcasts we've ever recorded.
Yeah. So I just gave it a 4 on 5. It's good. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thankfully a little bit for the sake of the length of all this. Only 2 left to talk about at this point. Like we
Yep.
fucking made it this far. Let's deal with propaganda though.
Yep.
To say ending this song with an actual Huey Newton quote, because he's a name you hear of. Like I heard the name first from Tupac when it's 2 shots in the dark, now Huey's dead. You know, like so I got love from my brother. That's what Huey said. 2 shots in the dark, now Huey's dead on Tupac's Changes, which was a radio track when I was really young. So suffice it to say, in like almost my whole life, I've never looked into him, but just to hear him talking at the end of his track, so you can hear like almost the essence of his message. We view each other with a great love and a great understanding. Well, that sounds like a fucking terrorist, you know, like, and that we try to expand this to the general black population and also people oppressed people all over the world. And I think that we differ from some other groups simply because we understand the system better than most groups understand the system. And with this realization, we can attempt to form a strong political base based in the community with only strength that we have, and that's the strength of potentially destructive force if we don't get freedom. Okay, a little more violent there, but still, the idea is we want to build our own community, be our own people, and be free. And if you look around the world throughout the last 100 years, how many countries have become free of their oppressors? Divided up borders. Look at the Yugoslavia or the Czechoslovakia and all these different things. So why?
Well, also, I mean, if we're looking, I mean, a lot of countries in Africa gained their independence in the 60s around the same time, and so, you know, and they were like, you know, the splits, you know, where the border was drawn, it has created like these huge divides, and, you know, things that just kept going. And then it went on until the 90s, like Rwanda, and, you know, with like the Tutsis and the Hutus.
That never ended. That's still an active
I know,
situation.
but like, I mean, like at this time, it was like very, you know, well, I mean, I guess had sort of trailed off a little bit, but, you know, the mid 90s was like very, very heavy crime and brutality and murder and stuff like that there. And so I think that that's sort of something that they're
Basically,
reflecting on.
it just moved into the Congo. That's all that happened.
Yes, and, you know, there's still, of course, violence, not of course, but...
No, I mean, like, specifically the Rwanda genocide happens, I believe, in 93, and everyone thinks it's over on our side of the pond, and it's still an active conflict today. A lot of things are. I mean, there's just the idea that, like, it's like when I think about Quebec separating, because it's another one that's more local, I don't fully hate the idea of Quebec wanting to separate and become its own independent nation just because there's been so many examples of it. And Quebec's just stupid because it wants the Canadian dollar and the Canadian army to protect it, but wants all the perks of an independent country. Well, no, Quebec's a little silly. Still... So the idea of having the black folk unite and separate from the United States to create their own nation is a giant threat to hit the slave labor side of the USA, you know? Anyway, so the song starts off with some news snippets, and I believe it's Reagan who says, it's Richard Nixon. Let me turn to our program for the future, which is obviously, you know, where a lot of black folk probably get fucked up over the next 10 years, you know? The economy right now is extremely supportive of the president and his policies. FBI scientists have found chemical traces consistent with a bomb or missile on a piece of wreckage. Police using clubs and tear gas against demonstrators. They called me a motherfucking and so-and-so and a white fascist. And that was, I believe, Nixon again with the swearing when his tapes got found out and they realized how fucking vile he is. And a white fascist, like they said, you're getting some of your own medicine. So the same president who did all of this shit was really just a corrupt fucking little guy after all, you know? And then the lady singing Telling Lies to Our Vision, Telling Lies to Our Children, and all that shit. She's one of the best parts of this song, and her just singing that out at the outro really justifies the length of this song. As far as the verses go, you can't fool all the people all the time, but you fool the right ones, the rest will fall in line. We touched on that when we talked a bit about influencers and shit. Yep. Tell me who's got control of your mind, your worldview. Is it the news or the movie you're taking your girl to? Well, it used to be the news, and now it's like critical thinking, but for a long time I was a fool that was bought into that shit, you know? No one knows if there's UFOs or any life on Mars or what they do when they up in the stars, because I don't believe a word that the president said. He filled in our head with lies, got us hypnotized when he's speaking in code words about crimes, poverty, drugs, welfare, prisons, guns, robbery. It really means us. And it's true, man. Like, look at language like urban blah blah blahs. You're just trying to say black people. You're just not saying black people, but you're trying to say black people. And I always thought that was fucking weird ass shit that went on. He doesn't believe. I love the hook. I don't believe Bob Marley died from cancer. 31 years ago, I would have been a panther. They killed Huey because they knew he had the answer. The views you see in the news is propaganda. And that's truth, man. The views, the opinion pieces in the news, all the news is good for is to tell you that something happened. Like, say some shit goes down, you know it happened if the news is reporting it. But what happened? Well, if he's white, it's a mentally unstable person. If he's black, he's a fucking terrorist. You know, like, opinions are completely different.
Yeah, but they also only will tell stories like that. Like, there's lots of things that they don't tell. Just because they don't want to trigger anybody or instigate, anybody about certain things or cause, copycat criminals or things like that. So there are a lot of things that aren't reported.
And then, yeah, in the second verse, I like how he touches on God. If God made man, then why the hell would he put us here? I thought he's supposed to be the all-loving, the same God who let Hitler put the Jews in the oven.
Well, that's the thing. It's like everybody, whenever there's a war or, a conflict or, anybody, who is religious and, calls to God before that they go into battle, before they go into do whatever, everybody calls on their God and expects them to save them and to be on their side and then blames God when they are not. But everybody's basically talking to the same God or what. Anyways, I'm not going to get into... Anyways, I'll just not get into it. It's just going to get too much.
I mean, as far as God goes, I think strongly on this. If you look at the idea of God, it was about giving humanity free choice. So if humans have free choice, right, that means that God is going to act like a parent and let us act out. So if the kids want to behave in a certain way and they disobey their parents, I don't know if that's a reflection on the parent entirely, right? Because sometimes you have the best parent in the world and the kids just act in a certain way. So yeah, the world is what it is and God may exist, but the alternative is God doesn't give us any free choice and then we're a bunch of slaves in a different kind of way. So while a lot of atrocious things happen on this planet and God allows it to happen, I think that's the key part of it, is that God allows it to happen and doesn't stop it. Because if God were to stop this shit, then you get into different kinds of questions. Do we really have free choice at that point? Do we really have identity? So, I mean, in the same way, it's almost like the proof of free will is that God allows terrible bullshit to go on because, and that's how I look at that situation. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But either way, I do agree that, like, in general, the giant corporations are, in fact, flooding government lobbyists, using media, television, and commercials to brainwash us in subtle ways. Like, I haven't had cable in over a decade in my life because the internet allows me to not need cable. I mean, we have access to Netflix, but, like, I haven't paid for the commercials and whatever, and so the targeted ads coming at me from YouTube and shit are much better than the drug ads I would be seeing if I watched TV, than the bullshit that they would be feeding me if I was watching TV, you know? I don't really even like any of it. I don't want to go watch the trailers at the movie theater so that I can all of this shit's just putting seeds in your mind. It's this perpetual cycle so you can flood money back into some shit so they can look at like Hollywood, American bullshit propaganda. American's always the hero. Biggest antagonist on earth and they're always the hero in the movie. Show me the American movie where they destabilized the fucking Middle East and created a lot of tension in the world. We don't get that movie very often. We did
have a happy ending.
We did get Charlie Wilson's War, so we sort of got that movie. I don't know. My whole point is, like, it's all fucked up, man. And then, like, they look at the fact that there's, like, government conspiracies and shit that happen. You know, the police is telling lies, fooling millions. What they're teaching our kids in these school buildings. Televised enterprise making a living, controlling the lies. This ain't living. No, this ain't living. And I love that little bridge because it summarizes almost the entire point of the album in this little song. And then FBI, CIA, ATF, KKK, IRS, TNT, CBS, NBC. All these initials is propagandist bullshit of equal danger. And I know it's fucked up to say, but like, I don't have a lot of faith that the government is protecting me. I think that they're just trying to save face and do what they got to do. I'm not saying that there aren't bad people, there aren't good people in the government, there aren't good people in the FBI. I'm saying that these are systematic tools of control.
Yeah.
And that's fucked up. I really enjoyed Propaganda. I thought it was one of the best songs on the album. I gave it a 5 on 5.
Oh, wow. I mean, the media is only telling us what we need to be told or what they want to tell us. And it's, you know, it is created in a way where it scares us into hating certain people or certain groups or certain people from certain countries often. And, you know, and it targets them, and it makes, you know, like there's the bad guy for everybody to hate. And so it basically, you know, in this song, he's encouraging people to learn for themselves and not just take the mainstream news and TV and whatever you hear as fact, to do your own research, to look into things, to use other sources. And people need to take control of their country and their power. And it sounds like there's also like some, you know, you touched on it as well, some issues with God and religion and like how that can be perceived. And you just can't necessarily trust who's behind all of the stories that are put on, you know, TV or on the news or that you hear. And history is written by those in power. So you're not always hearing the good stories or the ones that make the powerful people look a certain way, you know, and I think that's, you know, obviously, again, still a very prominent issue today with the fake news and all that kind of stuff. And like how it just seems like the government is hating on the government for like their types of stories that they're being reported on. And it's just like this confusing thing where you're not really sure what's real, what's not, what's, you know, it's just sort of like these kind of stories that get concocted. And just to kind of be aware and just to kind of be wiser. And again, another good, strong message to just sort of take control of your own knowledge and what you understand of the world. I give it a 4 on 5.
All right, we're almost at the end, I promise. The Pistol is the next song.
All right.
Lockdown upstate, son, it's a setup. My life is sped up, many years, I'm straight up.
I feel like this sounds like a Mobb Deep song,
Yes.
but with like Dead Prez's little twist on it all. But like, it just sounds so drastically different than the rest of the album. Like, it doesn't necessarily feel like the same revolutionary tones. The production feels a lot more like what Havoc does with it, with the heavy drums and shit. It's very aggressive, but aggressive in the like almost criminal kind of way. Like, you can never understand how my mind tick. I'm on some old school crime shit where hold tools to keep the dimes. There ain't no rules with these iron shots of stones done. The heat burn through your flesh straight to the bones. I reach for the Buddhist Session zone. And I'm like, I mean, they're rapping extremely well and everything's cool, but it just feels like previously they had one style, and on this song it feels more like a different style. I mean, fundamentally, I understand this track to be like, the environment's fucked up, and when you have money and shit, it's dangerous, and money, cash rules everything around me. So we need fucking guns because it's not a safe environment, and I want to hear what the fuck you have to say about a gun because you don't know what this shit, what's up with it, you know? Our lives are dangerous. We may have to kill people. We may actually have to pull that trigger and do some shit. And then, yeah, I don't know, like, here's an example. Like, I'm blessed. Puffing the skunk make me care less. The best that you can do is duck my fucking crew. If the slugs don't get you, Lord Jail dig ya. Acting artificial get you burnt by the pistol. When it's done, even my guns will turn to missiles. And I just feel like as much as this is aggressive and well done and blah blah blah, it just doesn't feel like the rest of the album. It feels almost like this is kind of glorifying gunplay a little bit. It doesn't sound like a political rant about how, like, you need guns because, you know, grandma's gonna get robbed if she's not gonna, like, you can make that debate. Like, grandma needs the gun in the hood, so the fuck you know about that? You know, shit like there are really smart arguments to be made here. And I'm just feeling like they wrote a really decent gangster rap song in the middle of this, like really good though.
Yeah.
But it's like a really good Mobb Deep song for real. Like, I don't know if that's a disrespectful thing, but that's just kind of the influence I'm hearing here. I mean, we did those 2 Mobb Deep albums. This is the most it reminds me of. Then there's this Maintain guy who comes in and he does it proper, but like forever keeping my shit cocked for drama. Like, yo, I guess, so if something pops up, you're gonna shoot. Stainless steel shit is for real. The way these rats is knowing to squeal, making sour deals. Thugs up in the midst of these drug deals, caught in the humble. Bricks and paper by the bundle, how the Bronx rumble, plague spreading. And it's not like glorifying guns for the sake of it's fun to have a gun. There is this degree of, there are bad players in this game, so we're required to have guns. I don't know, I still feel like the tone is different. I still feel like it's a really good song, but it feels so fucking weird on this project, and it does a little bit feel too much like they jocked the style. So I gave this a 4.15. Like, it's a really good song, but I don't know if I like it on this album.
Yeah, I agree, and the beat is very familiar. It's definitely like I was thinking it was maybe like a Wu-Tang or Raekwon. Like, I couldn't figure out, maybe it is Mobb Deep, because it's definitely like that kind of sound. I'm just trying to figure out who it is. And again, like, I feel very much the same way. Like, I wrote down, this feels very opposite from the rest of like the album. Like, it's very like dirty, grimy, gangsta. Like, it's very kind of exactly what they sing, like the opposite of what they sing about. Like, it just seems like very like, huh? Like a weird kind of sound throughout the end. But I do think that there is a message that they are trying to say with this one, is that just be careful, because money can drive you to do some bad things. And I think that's kind of the overall message, and not to behave badly just because you're trying to attain money, and like that's not necessarily like anybody, like money shouldn't necessarily be like your end goal, but unfortunately it's what is required for most of us to live. And so I think that that's sort of like the message, but it definitely felt weird and a little bit off. I gave it a 4 on 5.
All right, so that's it. We have come to the end of the Let's Get Free by Dead Prez album review. This motherfucker just scrapes by, and I'm calling it a classic with a 4.505 on 5. This is a very good album. I saw online that it's like the most revolutionary thing since like Public Enemy, and it really has that strength. Yeah. It has that knowledge of how to empower yourself. It has that get up and fight mentality. It has that mosh pit vibes. It's got excellent, intelligent, well composed, aggressive rapping, but not just aimless. It's like they mad at the system.
It's smart. It's political.
And they're taking that aggression and everything they've learned from eating healthy to how to get proper sex. And something they did point out is that the song Mind Sex has helped many a brother get laid. So evidently there's something to it. And all I'm trying to say is, like, it's a brilliantly well put together project with just a couple of songs that are not my favorite on it. But for an 18 song, hour and 7 minute experience, this is a fucking classic. And it's definitely got replayability.
Yep.
And it's tapping into that universal truth shit, because most of the subject matter is more relevant today than when it dropped. And I think when an album can pull that off, it becomes truly, in a sense, timeless. Yep,
I agree. I give it a 4.38 on 5, so at 87%. I think this is a classic. It's overall, it's a great album. There is not a bad song on it. There's a lot of strong, powerful messages, and lots of knowledge. This is a long enough review as it is, but if you were to go through line by line and pick out the names and the information that they're throwing at you and just researching it, like it would just be like an infinite source of wealth to you, especially if you are a Black American. I think that's essentially, this is who is the target audience. And so it is really a strong message for anybody who's maybe a little down, and you need like kind of like pick me up and to like get out there and fight and kick some ass and keep the Black Lives Matter kind of like movement going and like that kind of thing. It's a powerful album for sure. It's great. Very well done.
All right, well, thank y'all for watching. I totally appreciate you sticking through it,
Yes.
especially if you stuck through the longer
It's
ones
been a
like
long
this.
one.
Definitely feel free to leave any comments contributing to this. We look forward to hearing what you have to say. If you make that effort to leave a comment, I will make that effort to answer you because that's only fair. And look forward to reading that. You can hit subscribe to the channel for like more reviews, and you can hit the like button if you liked it and you want to support this deep dive kind of exploration. And special thanks to the patrons Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, Jonathan Barnes, Linda Williams, and DJ Black Hurricane. They support what we do. They helped us get a new camera. They get to tell us what albums to review here and there. And yeah, it's growing. We're trying to turn this into a real movement to get the album, love for the album, back to what it's supposed to be. So help us with the cause. We also make some music over here. You can check that out on the channel.
Let us know if you learned anything, from what we talked about.
Yeah, and let us know what else we should cover. And either way, this was fun. This was like long, but I think this album is
Worthy.
one of the most interesting ones I think we've talked about in terms of diverse and continually stimulating subject matter.
Yep.
And that's wicked stills. So have yourselves a great week, everyone.
Bye,
Hi, guys.